council meeting.
Good evening. Welcome to the Titusville City Council meeting on October 13th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. We have a quorum. I will call this meeting to order. In lieu of an invocation, please join me in a moment of silence. Please stand and join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first item is.
And Mayor, before we get to the agenda,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to, the applicant for agenda item 9A has requested that item be withdrawn.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, first item is approval of minutes. Anybody like to do that?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we
Mr.
approve.
Wait.
Okay, go.
That's her.
Okay, go ahead.
I get to go first.
Go right ahead.
Fight over it.
You're
I move-
on.
I move to withdraw item 9A from the agenda.
They don't need approval.
He already did.
I was going to say, you didn't need a vote. It was withdrawn by the
Okay.
applicant, if you just want to
Okay.
recognize.
Now, do you want to do the,
Oh, I can do the minutes if you want. Move to approve the minutes of the regular city council meetings on September 8th, 2020, and the special city council meetings on September 9th, 2020, and September 17th, 2020.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please, clerk.
Member Jordan,
Yes.
Member Nelson,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes,
Vice Mayor Diesel,
Yes.
Member Stokel.
passes.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. I almost missed you. Next is staff presentation.
Yes, sir, we're on item 5A. In response to a citizen's request on September 22nd, 2020, the staff was requested to prepare a presentation regarding homelessness. And we have Ms. Terry Franklin here to provide the presentation, as well as Chief Lau, should you have any law enforcement questions regarding homelessness. Terry?
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, homelessness. So, let's talk about where we are. Back in 2015, we started our 5-year plan on homelessness. That month in September, we held a homeless workshop with City Council and some key spokespersons from all over the county. At that meeting, we focused on developing 4 outcome measures. So over the course of the last 5 years, we'll touch base on what has been accomplished. So that following month in October, we developed the strategic goals and performance measures for the homeless plan. That following month in November, we developed the 11-point homeless plan. This is a flow of how that plan works. It involves Brevard County and the city of Titusville in a partnership to address the homeless plan. And we also developed the coordinated assessment process, which leads the client, so to speak, that calls in that's homeless and needs services. This is the process that they would go through to either rapid rehousing or permanent housing. So following up on that plan in December of that same year, we moved pretty quickly through the outcomes and goals that we set. So in December, council passed the recognizing Brevard County Homeless Coalition as our lead agency on developing homelessness plans and serving the homeless. In 2016, the city donated its first property to a developer for transitional housing for homeless. In 2018, we partnered with the Department of Children's and Families on developing a mental health steering committee, which in turn resulted in a mobile response team. That same year in 2018, we donated our second property for permanent supportive housing for construction. In that same year in 18, we increased services at the Harry T. Moore Social Service Center by partnering with North Brevard's Charities, who is the service provider at the center now. And then 18 and 19, those 2 years, we donated several homes to veterans at the subdivision down on DeLeon. And then this year, we, unfortunately with the COVID pandemic, we have started a new grant program with our CARES Act programs, which continues to address our homelessness in the city. Just kind of recap, and last year, at the end of last year, this is your point-in-time count. If you're not familiar with that, this is where the agencies actually go out into the street and they do a count of the homeless individuals that are on the street, those that are in emergency shelters and transitional housing. So in 2019, we had a count of 61 individuals that were on the street in Titusville. 211, if you're familiar with that, that is basically our Brevard Homeless Coalition. They have a 211, that is the actual number that you call, and someone can tell them their situation, what they're looking for, and then they will direct that individual to the agencies that can provide those services. So these are the breakdown on the call volume last year. And this year, we just got in the preliminary numbers from the point-in-time count that was just concluded. And you can see that we are down from last year of 61 down to 49 now is the street count for this year. We've had, unfortunately, an increase in homelessness due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but our priorities have shifted. We've gone from sheltering to more of a prevention type proactive situation. And during the pandemic, the first few months, our shelters were impacted and they had to close due to social distancing and all of those other things. But they're just now coming back online, so we'll see those services pick back up. So let's compare 2019 to 2020. In March, this time last year, you'll see there the types of assistance we were providing. Those numbers are the type of the number of households that were served. Compared to this year, you can see where the change has taken place. We've gone now to where we need more rental assistance and more utility assistance to keep people in their homes. So county-wide, these are the numbers specifically dealing with the pandemic since March. You can see it broken down through Melbourne, Cocoa, then you have Titusville, and you can see there's quite a large number there of calls that are coming in for referrals, Titusville being the lowest of the group. Is that it? I guess that is it. So, if there's any questions or any questions anyone has
Council, any questions?
where we were and where we are, I'd be glad to answer them.
City Attorney? You're up here, I don't know why.
It's probably down there.
It's number 8.
I believe that'd be Councilor.
Joe Lynn.
Joe Lynn.
You're first.
Yep.
I'm first again? Okay.
I've got City Attorney on there.
Thank you. Terry, I'm assuming we have a large number of homeless vets that have PTSD. Would that be?
I don't have firsthand knowledge of that, but I know that the Brevard Homeless Coalition does have a housing project that is geared directly to the veterans, and they have a full wraparound service with those mental health services.
Okay. John, can we help? Are you guys seeing vets, mostly vets out there, or?
Well, the agency we primarily deal with is the National Veterans Homeless Support, which is George Taylor.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, last week we had a meeting with George Jr. and his wife, and a large contingency of their, the folks that they service do have some type of a condition from being in the military. It should be noted, even though it's the veterans, homeless support, they also assist non-veterans as well.
Good, I didn't realize that. So I guess my question is there counseling available? Are these individuals who have mental health problems or PTSD, is there a place where these people can go for counseling?
There are, and as a matter of fact, through the NVHS, they're
Okay.
constantly with the van carting back and forth to
Okay.
the VA and to get, they actually are bringing them here to Titusville at the center on Singleton. And we'll have
Okay.
doctors, dentists, and all, you know, twice a
Okay.
year come out and give them a full checkup.
Okay. I was just thinking, if you work on the PTSD, does that allow these people to actually move into housing?
So there is a misnomer. There's a large percentage of the homeless that don't want housing. They're comfortable where they are in the woods. Now, we have seen an uptick since actually the rent's going up of families becoming homeless. That's a different element, so we have a relationship with a large percentage of the homeless in the woods because we know they're there, we check on them, we make sure they're okay. But part of I think the misnomer is everyone thinks, everyone who's homeless can't afford a home or can't, and that's not exactly accurate.
Do they tell you why they don't want? They prefer the woods or as opposed to housing?
Yeah, not really. We had one of the hotels in town that had rooms to put up, and we were gonna go by and make sure that everything was very good. Most of them were already gone by 11 p.m. They just went in, they got a shower, and they got out. Again, for whatever reason, they don't feel comfortable in housing. So
Okay.
Mr. Taylor had provided housing for every single one of the folks, and it was turned down. So it is a misnomer. That's just a certain percentage.
I guess I just, as average Joe citizen, I go, when it's raining, when it's cold, I'd prefer a roof over my head,
Correct, and the NVHS actually has volunteers that go and do recon into the sites and provide blankets, provide food, and provide, as a matter of fact, what they're trying to work on now is getting some of the other support groups out there to where they're communicating together, so they're not getting 4 meals in 3 days and, just kind of, blocking time. So they're trying to get it more electronic where everyone can contribute.
Okay, thank you.
Next is Member Jordan.
Those are quick. Thank you, sir. Actually, Chief, you answered a couple of my questions, but listening to the presentation, it sounds like we know who's out there. We went from 61 to 49, but it's probably more than that because of the pandemic. We can understand that. But we don't know what the number is, correct? We don't know if it's 100 families out there or people.
Well, the point-in-time count, they physically go out and count, come to the centers, ask surveys, ask questions. So the count that they get is the actual count that they're interacting with these individuals.
No, I understand that, but we were saying it was 49, it's down to 49.
Correct.
So is that the number now as
That is-
of
yeah.
what date, last week, 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago?
2 weeks
Yeah.
ago? Okay.
Yeah, and this time of year, you get the transition from up north, so you'll see different faces this time of year.
Yeah, one of the things that caught my ear was you talked about the homelessness. Okay, we're at 49, but you then transition over to prevention. And there's a huge need in the community for utilities, support, and all of that. Based on the discussion, are we to agree that the NVHS is our unofficial group that is taking care of the needs of the homeless?
No, there's not any specific group that's the official agency. Brevard Homeless Coalition is our lead agency. They're the ones that everything funnels through to find the proper housing for them.
Okay, do we feel comfortable that we are taking care of the homeless as best we can at the moment?
I think that, yes, I think that we are doing the best we can with the resources we have right now with the pandemic, yes.
Yeah, one of the things that the chief said, and I always thought that's the case because I've seen some of the homes and talked to some of the homeless, is that some of them don't want homes, which is kind of interesting because we think that everybody wants to shelter, but some people just don't want the structure of a home. They just don't want the responsibility of all those things. But that's just still a small amount of people compared to the 49 that's out there. Would you say that for sure?
Yeah, I've just like Chief Lau, I've had interaction with a couple of homeless when we were doing the donation of the homes, and reached out, and it was quite interesting, and that they did not want the home. Yeah.
I think one thing that's coming out of this is the fact that we do have a plan.
Yes.
And we're continually looking at the homeless, and we're making sure we take care of them as well as we possibly can. For those who want help, we're trying our best to help them. The only challenge I think we have is on one of your charts, you're showing, if I can find it, all the different assistance that is needed with mortgage, rental, utilities, and all of that. And I'm not sure how, is there any grants or anything that we can get to support them on that, or how can we?
For the utilities
Yeah,
and rent? Yes. That's what our COVID-19 grant, actually on your agenda tonight is the second round of funding for that. That is strictly being used for rent and utilities and mortgage payments.
Okay. And the qualifications of that is?
Your household's been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, so you've had either a job loss, you're furloughed, you've lost hours, so it's basically a loss of income to the household.
Okay, so there is no level, if you will, from those who were in the poverty level before, and now, because of the COVID, we've got those who are working and now they can't pay their bills. Is there a priority to that, or no?
No, no.
Okay. All right, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor?
I went to the Homeless Coalition meeting, I think it was like the day after our last meeting. And so it was a great opportunity and get a better feel for what their thoughts are. And they pretty much line up with where you guys are. One of the questions I had there, and I think George is the first one that said this, that it registered with me. So the question is, how many of our homeless are homegrown? And how many come here? And George had said at one time, they actually, especially veterans homeless, tend to make their way here because we do a better job than most other areas. I'm not close enough to know how that all works, but sometimes these numbers are skewed because we have people saying they do a good job, let's go there. So what do you think the percentage is of what we're looking at here, people who have come here because we do a good job?
That's a very good question. I just don't have the answer for it
Okay.
tonight, but I'm sure that there's probably data out there when they screen these individuals. They probably ask, are you, local, or are you in transition? So,
And that's probably not overly important because we're going to take care of everybody, but it's important in that we need to get a percentage idea of what our numbers are going to fluctuate. And are they going to go up, and can we be prepared? And quite honestly, in the Homeless Coalition meeting and listening to you as well, the funding is not exactly where we'd like it to be. Speaking of that, during the COVID, the pandemic, two things. One is, are we more limited now in well, I'm sure we are because of just getting together, but are we more limited in services to the homeless now than we were back in March?
I wouldn't say so, except for the exception of shelters, because the shelters were closed, but now they're coming back online.
And to line up with what Chief said, at the coalition meeting, they were speaking in some cases, and it sounds like what you were talking about, they went to the hotel and then they're gone by 11 p.m. The coalition people were trying to say that, or weren't trying to say, they were saying that they would be better off if we had a place for everybody that could shower and brush their teeth and that sort of thing and not stay long. Do we have some of that going on?
We had the Salvation Army was doing that. It's my understanding that they had to close that portion of their facility, and they're just doing the meals now.
So what do the people do who are there? I'm not saying we have the answer, and again, the pandemic, and hopefully we're moving to phase 3 and things will get a little looser, but that's got to be an issue too, as far as bringing in people that you don't know their background and where they've been, and here they are coming in to try to shower and brush their teeth, et cetera. I'm sure that's a difficult situation. Do we have an answer for that, or are we trying to come up with an answer for that?
I think we're working towards that, between the coalition, the Homeless Coalition, and our local, group that meets once a month at the Harry T. Moore Center, discussing on trying to get a facility. We are hoping with the one donation of land that the city did was going to be for transitional housing, and hopefully it will have that type of aspect along with it. North Brevard's Charities has been great at filling the gap in the meantime until we can get a facility in the North Brevard area.
Well, and again, similarly to what Member Jordan said, what's really good here is to hear that we don't have all the answers, but we're asking all the right questions and trying to move towards the answers. We're not just sitting there saying, well, we'll figure it out later. I appreciate that. My last question or concern is come January or February and we get some of those low 30s, high 20s nights, even with the hurricane, God bless us this time, and God thank you that we didn't get a bunch, but the one that did come by, we weren't opening up shelters because of the COVID. Is that going to be an issue, or we may not even know, because who knows if it's going to go up or down or all around? But if it's 26 degrees outside, we got to have somewhere to put these people out in the street. And I don't know that we can do that with the COVID. It's really a question more than anything else.
NVHS has agreements with many of the hotel motels in the area. And as a matter of fact, Garden in 95 will have a whole entire wing and a bunch of volunteers with vans on cold nights, or if it's going to be, dangerous, severe weather, they'll gather up as many as we can and bring them there for the night. But these agreements and partnerships have been in existence forever, and it's as long as I've been here, I've known that they are getting shelters on those nights.
Okay. And I was just maybe thinking, well, will the COVID change that? Because it changed how we evacuated for hurricanes this year.
It changes just by how many people go in the van, and you
Okay.
just have to work longer and drive more. But no, it has not changed.
Okay.
On how we're handling that.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And also back to Member Jordan's about why they come here and why Mr. Taylor is successful is he has a specific volunteer that is very good at navigating through the veteran benefits, which is very difficult, and it's a very tedious process. And so she is gifted at getting documents that they may not have, and then getting the forms filled out with them and submitting it so they're getting the proper benefits. And that's why they are so successful here, and that's why people are coming. Sometimes they come, they get their benefits, and then they move on.
I see no other lights. Clerk, are there any cards
I have
on
a
this?
question.
Oh, yes, go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the information already. I just had two clarifying questions. One, it sounds like we do have some resources available. It's just a matter of whether or not we can connect the citizens in need to those resources, and Harry T. Moore Center being one of them. My question is, have you seen people go into the Moore Center and potentially be turned away from assistance because they're not meeting certain criteria?
I have not witnessed or seen anyone turn away. They have homeless bags there that have personal hygiene items, food. So if they're not looking for shelter, they at least get those type of services.
Okay, thank you. And then the second question is in regards to the slide that you had of the March 2019 numbers to the March 2020 numbers of rental, utilities, and mortgage assistance, all of those numbers were up. Were those numbers of people in need of those assistance, or were those people that we helped with assistance?
Those were the number of calls that came in for those types of assistance to the 211 center.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, that's a staff presentation, so we don't have cards on that item. I do have to step back to one thing that I should have done before this item, and City Clerk, would you please read the rules for speaking to council this evening?
Oh, yes, sir. The following is the procedure for public comment and participation. Individuals wishing to speak on public and non-public hearing agenda items must complete a sign-up card and present it to the clerk prior to the item being introduced. Those wishing to speak on quasi-judicial public hearings must complete a sign-up card and sign the oath. Sign-up and oath cards are available on the table in the council chamber. Then, for individuals wishing to speak on non-agenda items, you may do so under petitions and requests from the public present. This opportunity is offered twice in the meeting, and individuals may speak at either the first or second petitions and requests, but not both, and no sign-up card is required. Citizens shall not comment on any issue more than once during the meeting. All comments except petitions and requests must address the pending issue, and citizens will be given 3 minutes to speak on agenda items. And finally, citizens wishing to speak on the consent agenda items must submit a comment card identifying the items of interest. Speakers shall be given 3 minutes per item. However, citizens wishing to speak on more than 3 consent agenda items shall be limited to speaking for a total of 10 minutes, regardless of the number of items identified.
Thank you, City Clerk. City Attorney, please read the meeting rules for this evening.
The city council meeting may be conducted by utilizing communications media technology as provided in section 120.54 5B2 Florida statutes without having a quorum of council physically present in the council chambers. In order to help prevent the spread of the COVID-19 coronavirus and to comply with all local, state, and federal laws and guidelines regarding social distancing and social gatherings, designated seating shall be provided for the public within City Hall. Individual speakers shall, when directed to do so, be given the opportunity to speak on agenda items at City Hall during the meeting in accordance with City of Titusville Resolution Number 16/2020. Signs held by speakers are permissible, but no tripods, easels, props, or other demonstrative aids shall be brought into City Hall. In addition to the regular broadcast of the council meeting via closed circuit television and live stream YouTube video, which may be accessed through the city's website, video and audio of the meeting will also be provided within City Hall for the public in attendance. As an additional method for public participation, the public may submit written comments via email to city.agenda@titusville.com or by regular mail to City Council's attention at City Hall, 555 South Washington Avenue, Titusville, Florida, 32796. Written comments must be received by 5:00 p.m. prior to the start of the meeting and include the sender's name, address, and the subject line must specify the agenda item being addressed. All comments will be disseminated to the council members and made a part of the public record prior to any action being taken. Speakers who appear in person will be subject to screening for symptoms of COVID-19, and any persons exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19 will not be permitted to enter City Hall.
Thank you, sir. Next item is 6A, Planning and Zoning Commission.
Yes, sir. On boards and commission, we're on item 6A, planning and zoning. Currently, there's one vacancy for an alternate member with a term to expire on January 31st, 2022. There are 2 applications on file for your consideration, Mr. Robert Johnston and Ms. Catherine Riley. Both have expressed their willingness and desire to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission as an alternate member with a term to expire on January 31st, 2022.
Are both of those people, or either of them here? All right. Ma'am, do you want to come up? Would you like to come up and speak?
I haven't really planned any remarks.
If you'd just like to introduce yourself and tell why you're interested in this
I'm
post.
Kathy Riley. I worked as an attorney in this city for 39 years. I'm retired now. And I've done some community work, such as I was chair of the support committee at Cape Canaveral National Cemetery up in Scottsmore. And I've lived here, I raised my kids here, and I'd like to give something back with serving on the board. as an alternate.
And could we have your name and address for the record, please?
Catherine Riley, I live at 1120 Riverside Drive.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Johnston, would you like to speak?
Stan Johnson, 860 Poinsett Avenue. I'm a registered professional engineer, and I've been in this business with planning and zoning and engineering for many years, and registered in 1976, passing the exams in civil and mechanical engineering. I think that Mrs. Riley would be a fantastic person to take this position, and I think she's very well qualified, and her heart is for the city. However, I don't think she understands what the city is doing. And the city is misleading. For example, Mrs. Nelson, who has, on one of her references, she has misled Mrs. Riley. So I'll quote to you from a letter that I sent to you on October 2nd, and that's instead of Mr. Jordan, I'll replace the word Mrs. Nelson. It says, for more than 20 months, Mrs. Nelson claims the existence of a 2019 report costing about $70,000 by Geosyntec Consultants, as our engineers, that City Council and others claim reviewed my correspondence, Stan Johnson as a professional engineer, to City from 2012 to 2019, and this report proves that Stan Johnston, professional engineer, is nothing but a worthless, incompetent, stupid engineer. I resent that. However, although mayor, city council, city manager, and city attorney continue to promote and pretend that this report exists, Geosyntec, the engineering company, claims that they did not do this report. City has no contract to do the work, and the report cannot be recovered by city's records manager. This is malicious fraud. This is malicious fraud. This is malicious fraud by City Council, our Honorable Mr. Lorice, City Attorney, supports it also, Mr. Jordan. This is malicious fraud, slander of a report that does not exist to discredit me, my family, and many clients and many people in the city of Titusville. There are many victims of city's nonsense, in this case fraud, cover-ups, and dishonesty. I don't know why would Mrs. Nelson trash her precious reputation. If you have questions about this, you can read a sealed document. It's on ORB page 8506, ORB 8506, page 1374. ORB 8506, page 1374. The city is doing this, plus the city is right now deficit spending, but they don't let the city know about. $65 million unfunded liability. That means $1,400 owed for every man, woman, and child in Titusville. And it's not in the paper, but city's auditor in April 28th, 2020, said, hey, listen, this is a big problem. But the city says that the city is balancing the budget. It's far from it. We're deficit spending, but we can't be like the federal government. We can't print money. So the city is in big trouble. Not only is there fraud, misleading the public, and finances, big time. Big time. $65 million. You don't see that in the newspaper, but it's there. So I want Mrs. Riley to know that she's in a situation that's going to be.
Your time is up, sir.
May I have extra time, please?
I don't see anybody.
Okay.
Oh, one question, sir. Are you an accountant also?
I was there. I was present at the meeting. I got a copy
Are
of
you
it.
an accountant?
I don't think I consider myself an accountant.
Thank you, sir. I don't either.
Okay. Well,
If
how
you'll
about the $65 million?
If you'll sit down, please. Okay, what's your pleasure?
Sir,
Do we have any,
Member Nelson?
oh, I was going to make a motion
Yes, ma'am.
to,
Oops.
Excuse me, sir, I just want to point out that you received email written comments on the item, and they were distributed to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I wanted to make a motion to appoint Kathy Riley to the Planning and Zoning Commission as an alternate.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just, and this is not against Ms. Riley at all, so I want you to understand that. It just happens to be that you're an attorney. And based on the letter that we received, we do have a lot of attorneys on planning and zoning, so just wanting to point that out. I don't have anything against attorneys, they just cost too much money, but I just want us to make sure we're balanced when we're, have a commission for sure. She's an alternate, I don't have a problem with that, but I think we just need to make sure that we're pushing to get other applicants so we can balance what we're getting back from the P&Z, because that commission is supposed to give us their opinion of things, and if we got it balanced with different people, I think we'll get a better opinion coming back before the council. That's it.
I'd like to add to that.
You go right ahead, sir.
Member Jordan, I actually noted that myself, and truly, no problem. It's outstanding. But I agree that we are lawyer loaded at the top. And the other thing I noted, and maybe not just, and I'm not looking at my addresses here, but it seems perhaps we have an abundance of board members in different commissions that live in the River Edge Drive area. And I'm not saying numbers, I'm not saying that's a bad thing either. But I would like to, get a few more people, and this is up to us to get them to apply, first of all. So, but, get some people over from Hickory Hill and some people from Imperial Estates and some people from Whispering Hills. We got to get those people to apply because, and part of the deal is the people who are applying live in this area and lately are lawyers. So I agree with Member Jordan that it's absolutely not a problem, but it probably hit us because I think this is the third one in a row. That's kind of interesting.
Well, I'm going to apologize and say that's what happens when you have a lawyer sitting up here. She knows all the other lawyers in town.
Go right ahead, Member Nelson.
And, unfortunately or fortunately, those are a lot of times people that I run into. It's like you're a teacher, you're a coach. So who do you run into? You run into coaches. You run into other people in the school system. Me, I'm an attorney. I run into other attorneys. But I'll work on that.
I think I speak for Mayor Jordan when I say that's not a bad thing. Everybody out there, it's not a bad thing. It's just that it's just so ironic that the last three were all, so I get it. Yeah, I agree, totally.
I can't address why the last three certainly, but this is advertised in the paper.
Yeah.
And so it's open to anybody in any area of Titusville. So I can't say why they're attorneys, although I thank you very much for volunteering. I'm sure you'll do a great job.
Sure will.
But anybody, and I'll say this for the public, that it's in the paper when something's coming up. You can apply for it. An application can be attained at the clerk's office, and anybody that's a citizen of Titusville is able to do that. So, thank you. Anybody else? Okay. The next item is Oops.
You've not voted yet, sir.
That's right. Do I have a motion?
I think I made the motion to appoint. Or did you? Yeah.
We got a motion and a second for Ms. Riley, right? Yeah. Yes, okay. Just want to make sure we're with it here. All right, any further discussion? Roll call vote, please, clerk.
Member Nelson,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Diesel,
Yes.
Member Stokel,
Yes.
Member Jordan.
Yes.
Passes unanimously, and thank you again, ma'am. Next item is North Brevard Parks and Recreation, but I'd like to take 1 second to talk about the parks and a gentleman by the name of Jeff Davis. I think you know him. He's the North Brevard steward of North Brevard area. He has done an excellent job. While the parks, many of the parks are owned by Titusville, the county, and Jeff works for the county, takes care of them due to the fact that that's something they do for all of their parks. We give them the money we get from the citizens, the MSTU, and pay the county to do it. They have trucks and all those things already available. Otherwise, we'd have to put up 2 structures. So it works out for both of us. And Jeff has been heading that up for quite a long time now. I have worked with him very closely, and I think the city manager does also, and he just does a great job, and they just did a great job on Sandpoint with new roads that they put in, Sandpoint Park, new roads they put in and things they've just straightened up and just have it, it's just looking so great, and I just want to give him some public thanks for that. So with that, I'll turn it over.
Can I follow that up?
Oh, sure.
And the reason I want to follow that up, I've been the liaison from the city council. We have different liaisons and members on different boards. I'm the one that's at Parks and Rec. And I too wanted to say that Jeff Davis does a great job. And the first thing he would say if you said that to him is we have a great team. And I wish I could tell you all the names of the team members, but one guy that I know because he gives his report every month, and I only know his first name because it's Tex. So Jeff will probably get us with all of those. But Jeff leads a great team. He's been a long-time coach, and he kind of coaches that team. But I can tell you that they take great pride in taking care of their parks. And one of the issues, I shouldn't even say this as far as being an issue, but one of the things we wanted to improve when I first became the liaison, and Jeff about the same time became the supervisor of North Brevard Parks and Rec, was we wanted to get more activities offered to us from Parks and Rec. And as well as taking care of the parks, we wanted the rec part too. And so they have done a great job of giving us activities for the kids, activities for adults. Obviously, everything is a little bit on hold, and hopefully will unwind here soon. But I just wanted to second the mayor's words that Jeff Davis and his team do a great job, and it's been my honor for the last 4 years to be the city council liaison with that group.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? I don't see anybody else. You want to do North Brevard Parks and Rec? Is there any comments you have on?
No, sir, there's no action required. This is a report as written.
Okay. Next item is petitions and requests from the public. Would anybody like to speak? Soon, you can just come up when, yeah, you can switch over there if you'd like, just to get close. No, he's up here first, but you want to be second? You're second, you're third, okay.
There's a letter that was dated October the 2nd. It's an email letter that I'll send to Mrs. Riley. The letter also reads as follows. It says, I request any reader, just send all these council members and so forth, any reader who disputes any of this correspondence, this email, to contact me by email, and I will give my email address, and to provide to me an explanation of any errors that I made. So when I was talking about, for example, the $65 million, it's on record, it's in the auditor's report, and it's unopposed. This letter is unopposed by council member, by city attorney, by city manager. Fact is, I would love for you to go ahead and sue me for slander and libel, because you know you can't do it, because it's true what I'm saying. It's not libel, it's not slander, it's the truth. So anyhow, regarding Mr. Jordan, the letter was especially about Mr. Jordan, and I write to you about this is about his betrayal, about me and his betrayal. So when we witness evil, vicious, malicious evil that harms others, are we to turn our heads and ignore it? No. However, after Mr. Jordan and I privately discussed city's cover-ups and dishonesty, and he now exposes dishonest, malicious fraud that I just explained to you, and refuses to discuss problems with a closed-door policy, refuses to respond to the question. Here's the question. Where does the water go when our floodways are more choked with vegetation and sediment buildup? He won't answer that question, neither will any of you. City attorney, city manager, nobody will answer that question. And there's also this $65 million of unfunded liability. It's a big deal. I'm not an accountant. I don't have to be an accountant. The accountant reports it. You can get it out of public records. April 28th, 2020. Go for the records, get the report, and so forth. Mr. Jordan, for 20 months, he did the same thing as Mrs. Nelson. However, he's not involved. He promotes and supports this report that doesn't exist about how such a worthless and stupid engineer that I am. And of course, anyhow, I see what I see is that this city is headed on a path of self-destruction. You're lying. You're dishonest. I don't see any honor in that at all. And you're all headed that way. So what are you going to do? Are you going to continue this path? Lead the city downhill? It's fraud. It's dishonesty. But
Time is up, sir.
Okay, I'm asking for more time, please. Maybe a minute?
No.
Nope. Thank you.
Next, sir. Name and address for the record, please, sir.
My name is Walter Miller. I don't reside, but I own the house, me and Tom Manier at 4370 Abbott Ave. I have given you a call, Mr. Johnson, on the phone on 2 occasions to discuss with you a problem that we're having. You guys have got a septic issue that your drainage and those things have caused driveways to collapse. I'm sure you're aware of. You're repairing those things on Abbott Ave, which is out there off Knox McRae, at a rapid pace. The only thing that you're not doing on ours that you're doing on the others is repairing the full extent of the damage. Our driveway has fallen. You guys have taken it out. The manhole has dropped about 4 to 6 inches. So when you take, and I'm just going to be a little bit as presentable. If you take a driveway like this and you get a manhole like this here, and that driveway is 4 foot, what you don't have, sir, is you don't have enough pitch. You've got too much pitch for that driveway. That manhole hover, it's got to come up. So you're just putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. We have a carport that is teetering like this because everything's dropped towards that manhole because that's the problem. It's just a situation that needs to be resolved. We're part of the solution, sir. Solution being that as we repair this house that we purchased, we're putting about $40K into this house to repair it in hopes of getting, again, we're here to make a profit, obviously, but also part of the solution is to get a better price on a house as the other houses comp out, then the property taxes go up. We're the solution. And we're sitting here and people were fighting over nominal stuff. We're fighting over a driveway where Helen Keller, Ray Charles, the 3 blind mice, and Stevie Wonder can see the problem. And nobody will come out. They won't even come out there and look at it to address it, sir. Now, Gail has been very nice, very, very nice. She sent a man out there that just was out there to just, pacify us, and I get that. We just want you to repair the situation. We're not asking for a lot. We have offered a compromise. We are offering a compromise where our carport will actually put up the header for us because we do have a permit on this place with a general contractor to get things done. So we offer a compromise to hold up the structure while we remove the concrete on the driveway, which has dropped due to the problems you guys had with the septic or the sewer. And we just want to work together with you guys on this to resolve the issue. We want this house to be beautiful. We want to get 2 1/4. I get 2 1/4. Well, the neighbor down there, his comp goes up. His comp goes up. You guys are starting to look at new roads. You're starting to look at a solution. And that's who we are. And I don't know why we're fighting over this. We want to be part of the solution. And our team and my guys have been doing this for 38 years. And I'm just talking about, I fell into this because my father had me remodel when I was a kid because I got in trouble in school. At 10 years old, I like to talk to the girls. So I'm just asking you guys to give me a hand here, okay?
Your time is up, sir. I have one question.
Yes, sir.
You said nobody had gone out, and
Yes,
yet
sir.
you said one fellow did go out.
One fellow went out, but he was just out there to pacify. He had no authorization. Gail sent him out there, but he had no authorization to give us
Okay,
any
so
type
somebody
of
did
relief.
go.
Not anybody. He was nobody
Okay,
that had
thank you,
the.
sir. You answered my question. Thank you very much.
Is anything going to be done? What do I, because the
I'm
next.
going to ask the person in charge of that
What's that?
area. You can sit.
Okay. Tell me.
Yep. Mr. Cook?
Yeah, stormwater staff has been out at the job site. We offered to replace the front end of the driveway where our pipe was. There's more extent being claimed, and we passed that on to our risk manager as a claim of damages. So we weren't gonna fix the front while we're processing a claim through risk management. So we can check on the status of that with our risk manager.
That's,
Tammy gave us a flat no, and Cindy's been on vacation for the last 6 weeks. So she said, absolutely not, will we fix that?
sir, you're not on the microphone. It doesn't require an explanation at this point. You heard what he said. It's being looked at and taken care of to the extent we can. That's the end of it, sir. Sir, we're not going to argue about these items, but
I just would like you to look.
you've got 3 minutes, sir. I'll look at it if you want. It means nothing to me, though. I'm not a hydrologist. Sir, that,
Landscape company, if I broke somebody's concrete, I can't leave it like that.
sir, I don't know what that is even.
That's a driveway.
Hey, you're not to speak. Okay, is that all you needed, sir?
No, keep going.
Sir, you can't speak from the audience. If you wish to speak, I will give you 3 minutes to speak, sir.
Okay. Yeah, we're just asking that the damage be repaired. That wasn't even cut on a seam. I mean, they cut the concrete, that crack where you see, and it's all chipped. There's chips, there's one spot you could put your hand. So when they repair the concrete, now butted up to that concrete, water's gonna fill in that hole where the concrete chipped. I mean, look at the edge. It's jagged edge. We're just asking that you take it out. We're talking about a 4x8 piece of plywood of concrete.
Let's ask a question.
Yes.
First of all, looking at this is the front of the driveway?
They took the concrete out this
Okay.
way, and that's where that's working up toward the house. So we're saying, come on, take that piece out, make it a seam, make it a straight edge.
Is there anything you can comment on that picture? If you haven't seen it, maybe take a look at it.
I haven't seen it. We can talk to our stormwater staff about it again, and again, we have to follow up with risk management, because we don't want to commit to work while we have an active claim. So we need to follow up with legal and risk management as well as our stormwater staff, but we'll take a look at it. If we've done some workmanship that needs to be replaced, we'll take a look at it.
You guys won't even give us your
Put his
liability.
time back on, please.
But Wally, be quiet.
Sir, I can have you removed from the room if you'd like. Anything else, sir? Put his time on.
No, I mean, we just like it repaired, we just like the damage repaired, that's all. We're not asking for much. And this is a picture of the part that did get damaged. I mean, the part that was damaged fell down 3.5 feet. That's where the cave-in was 3.5 feet deep. I wouldn't even drive my car over it. I got a picture of it somewhere. Huh? Anyway.
120K we're sinking into this house.
Anyway, so the damage in the front that they took out the cave-in was 3.5 feet deep. I mean, it was a serious breach of the pipe.
Sir, I appreciate it. The head of the department is going to take another look and see if there's anything different that he finds, and that's all we can do.
Okay, that's great. That's all we ask.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Name and address for the record,
Oh,
please.
yes. George Micatarian III, 3640 Foxwood Drive. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm George Micatarian III, a senior from Titusville High School, and I appreciate this chance to speak with you guys. And I come tonight and follow up with Mr. Cole, who came and talked to you guys about the Humanity Task Force. I serve as the junior vice president of that group, and developed from that task force, we came up with a proclamation for the city to review. And that was passed out through the clerk, I believe, earlier. And it's for not only support in the Humanity Task Force, but to designate Titusville as a city of social justice. And that would become we'd become the first city in the United States to do that. And it would give us a really good, it would highlight our North Brevard community and bring new light to the justice that our community holds and will continue to work towards. All I ask is that you consider that request, and thank you.
All right. Nice to see you again. I knew you when you were about half of you.
Mr. Mayor.
Actually, we are working on something very similar to that. And the city manager and the vice mayor, who is also the mayor-elect, went to two meetings on this.
Two meetings.
And so did the police chief. And if you'd like to
Well,
comment on it.
first thing I want to comment on is, wow, what an impressive young man.
Thank you, thank you.
This, A, to do this, B, to present it the way you presented it. I could just sit back here and watch you all day. I mean, wow. Yeah, and city manager, remind me of the name of the event we went to.
Well, the first meeting was the police chiefs, city managers, elected officials, and advocates. I don't remember the name of that particular meeting.
You might.
Yeah, I apologize.
I will
The
tell
second
you
one
that
was the Melbourne.
ACLU was a presenter,
Yep.
Black Lives Matter was a presenter, and it was a real come together with hard questions. Then the next one we went to was part of the program.
The
was-
Melbourne Community Relations Board, which meets monthly.
And we just went to that last week, the Police Relations Board. And I say that because we've had some people speak on that. And I had said that night, that I was going to go whenever we went. And we had some community representatives there. And I think everybody came away feeling like, and I know certainly Melbourne feels like, it's a very effective program where they communicate with each other. If there's a problem, they bring it to the police chief. And it's an organized way to get things done. I digress back because I think that's good that we're making those moves, but I don't want to lose sight of what you're moving on and that I'm very excited that you're saying that, and I certainly look forward to seeing more of that and go from there. So again, I kind of wanted to just get that out. It was going to be the last thing of the night. I was going to say the places that I went and the things I did, but since you're there, it kind of lines up. But anyway, that's a salute. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Chief, any comments?
Mr. Mayor. Certainly want to congratulate Mickey for coming up here because I knew him when he was a little tight for sure. Actually, my daughter used to babysit for him. He used to say he loved my daughter, but now he's bigger than my daughter for sure. But the proclamation that he put together, I got a little confused because I got two of them. And I'm not sure, did you deliver two of them to us or one is?
Only one of those looks like the one out.
So I'm not sure. This one was in the Did you send it to the city
Yeah,
council?
I believe one of the drafts went to a council member, and because it did go to a council member, we distributed it to you all.
Like in this format?
I don't know what format it's in.
Because
sir.
that surprised me because it's basically the
sir.
format we would have it in.
Yes, sir.
Probably her. This is probably the one.
Right. So basically what I was going to do, because I'm on the Humanity Task Force, doing my council report, I was going to ask for permission for the mayor to actually approve this once city staff looks at it to make sure everything is okay.
Actually, the mayor does proclamations.
Right.
As I understand, doesn't require approval, but I'm not prepared to do this at this time.
No, that's what I'm saying. It needs to be reviewed first before.
I'll give it consideration. We have something going on now which seems very appropriate to do. If that doesn't fall through, maybe we'll look at this. Didn't he just explain the thing?
No, that's
I
two
think he's got
different
two different things
That's two
here,
different
Mayor.
things
I
there.
think that we have the communication going on and what he's simply looking for is a city of social justice proclamation.
Proclamation, exactly.
And this is it, because it does say city of social justice. So I think it's two different things, and I think we just need to consider it now, that's all.
Yep.
I will consider it. I just received this today,
Right.
I believe.
Right.
And I'm not prepared to do anything at this meeting.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, let me get back to my list here. Consent agenda, sir.
Yes, sir. Council, is there any of the consent agenda items that you would wish to pull? Clerk, are there any cards on any of the consent agenda items?
Yes, sir. 2 individuals have submitted cards. 1 individual submitted 7, and the other 2.
With your permission, Mayor and Council, I'd like to read consent agenda for the record.
Yes, sir.
Consent agenda item 8A, approve the use of City of Cocoa bid award on September 23rd, 2020 to Commonly Use Lime for the purchase of quick lime on an as-needed basis beginning October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021, with 2 optional 1-year renewals. In accordance with the completion of the City of Cocoa contract, consent for issuance of a piggyback agreement between the City of Titusville and Commonly Use Lime upon review and approval and consent by the city attorney and authorize the mayor to execute. In addition, authorize the inclusion of the award firm in the approved vendor of record list for purchases of this chemical and authorize the city manager to issue the purchase orders to acquire the chemical on an as-needed basis in accordance with the authorization permitted for vendors of record. Consent agenda item 8B, accept the additional grant funding in the amount of $92,996 from the state, approve the associated budget amendment, and authorize the execution of the agreement with the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. Consent agenda item 8C, approve and authorize the execution of an interlocal agreement with Brevard County for a joint affordable housing project located at 550 South Brown Avenue. Consent agenda item 8D, authorize the mayor to sign the 2020 Tree City USA recertification application. Consent agenda item 8E, approve the award of the contract to Canaveral Construction Company Incorporated of Mims, Florida for the installation of 7 emergency power generators at various city lift stations in the amount of $809,614.57 and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Consent agenda item 8F, approve the attached revised Titusville Student Advisory Council scholarship policy. Consent agenda item 8G, approve change order number 1 to Hitherland Group Incorporated of Cocoa, Florida in the amount of $38,386 to furnish and install additional cure-in-place pipe linear in various areas throughout the city and authorize the mayor to execute this change order. Consent agenda item 8H, approve the award of work order number 2 to Roca Controls Municipal and Industrial Control Systems of Tampa, Florida in the amount of $90,630 to provide consulting and programming services, including but not limited to upgrading the Osprey Water Reclamation Facility SCADA system, and authorize the mayor to execute the work order. In addition, the consent to piggyback agreement with the city of Titusville to Roca Controls upon review and approval of the city attorney and city manager for the execution by the mayor. Consent agenda item 8I, accept the extension of the Clean Vessel Act grant for additional 2 years and approve the receipt of an additional $16,500 in funding to continue to maintain the pump-out boat. Authorize the city manager or his designee to sign the grant amendment. Additionally, approve the budget amendment recognizing $16,500 of the grant revenues and authorize the required match of $5,500. Consent agenda item 8J, adopt resolution number 31, 2020, declaring that the City Council will hold a public hearing to consider the vacation and abandoning and discontinuing of certain public rights-of-way on October 27, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. in the City Council chambers located at 555 South Washington Avenue. Consent agenda item 8K, approve the acceptance and receipt of funds in the amount of $21,266 for the FY Local JAG grant. Consent agenda item 8L, approve the award to the fire department gear room renovations to CRM Construction Management of Titusville, Florida, in the amount of $48,707.52 for the renovation of 3 of the fire department's gear rooms. Additionally, approve the attached budget amendment to increase the current budgeted amount of the project by $18,707.52 and authorize the city manager to execute the contract documents upon review and approval by the city attorney. Consent agenda item 8M, approve the award of the City Hall restroom renovations to CRM Construction Management of Titusville, Florida, in the amount of $72,725.43 for the renovation of all 4 City Hall restrooms. Additionally, approve the attached budget amendment to increase the current budgeted amount of the capital improvement project by $8,979.43 and authorize the mayor to execute the contract documents upon review and approval by the city attorney as to the content.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Clerk, please read the name of the person with the 2.
Trenton Mansfield.
And which items?
Mr. Mansfield submitted for L and M.
Name and address for the record, sir.
The request went up from $48,707.52 to $18,707.52 on L. I requested the detailed agenda, and that may be explained in there, but I'm wanting to know why it went up by $30,000 on the fire department gear room renovations. Did we decide to go with more rooms, because I see that there's 3? Or did we go with more equipment in them, more different storage lockers? I'm just curious as to what granted the extra $30,000 from the original budget, or the original
Okay.
request.
Mr. Cook, are you going to address this?
The awards for 48,000, which is for 3 of the 4 bunker rooms from the fire stations. The $18,000 is, we originally budgeted 30,000. We're moving 18,000 from another project to fund the full project. There was no change in the scope that adjusted the money. We had to move money from one project to be able to afford the project. So what you're seeing there is an action moving $18,000 from one of our other projects to raise the money we have budgeted to match the contract award.
And it's just the same thing for letter M. I mean, I don't want to be up here all night.
Yeah, no, same thing. Same thing happened on the CL restrooms. We budgeted 65,000 and change. When we put the bids out, the low bid came in at 72, so we're moving money from another project to raise our budget amount to match our contract award.
And how many bids are we getting?
Both of these had at least 3, I believe. City Hall had 5.
Okay, thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you. Next card, please.
The next speaker is Stan Johnston.
Stan Johnson, 860 Poinsett Avenue. I would like to compliment somebody here. Mr. Cook, I mean, those were,
Sir, before you start, hold this time for a minute. You have 4 items, sir?
oh, 7.
7 items?
Okay,
You know, by our new rules, you have a total of 10 minutes.
yes, yes, sir.
And if you will identify the items as you speak to them, I would appreciate it.
All right.
And please,
Okay, I had
please
comments on those 2.
please keep it relevant. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you. I had comments on those 2 items that Mr. Tripp or something like that commented on, and I appreciate Mr. Cook's response and his other response to regarding that driveway. I thought it was just incredibly professional. So thank you for that. Now, on item 8D, the Tree City USA recertification application, I approve that one. I think that's a good idea. On the item 8E, I'm opposed to that. And that has to do with Mr. Stauffer, who's here, and I believe he's horribly mismanaging it. The stormwater, not stormwater, but the water and sewer, potable water and sewer. In this case, we're talking about seven new emergency power generators. My goodness, it's going to take a fleet of people just to even maintain those things. So I think there ought to be something else. They asked the question, what have we done in the past? Now we got to spend almost $1 million. Almost $1 million. In fact, it'll be $1 million when we get maintenance and so forth involved in these things. So they need to be really looked into. What in the heck is going on in this particular situation? Because understandably, what I've just shared with you is we don't have a balanced budget. We're behind big time. $65 million is real stuff. So I'm very much opposed to this about $1 million spending on emergency power. And we're in a condition right now, as I've described to you, that the city is in a horrible position of dishonesty and so forth. And it's my hometown. My hometown is the city of Titusville. And it appears to me it's no longer Space Coast capital of the world, whether it's the Space Coast capital of errors, cover-ups, dishonesty, more cover-ups, fraud. It's horrible. We're putting our city in a position of complete dishonesty and fraud. So I would like this to be relooked at. I'm opposed to that. I'm also opposed, let me do this other one, also to this cure-in-place pipe. And this has to do with, let me give you an explanation, is because I think it needs to be tabled and looked at the possibility of what's going on. Like we have Carroll Avenue. It's falling apart because of high water table. Why does it have higher water table? Because the city pushes to have higher water table. The city pushes to destroy septic tank drain fields. I just talked to somebody the other day, and they just spent $15,000 because their water table went up. Their water table went up, and now they have a pumped drain field. It wasn't like that, but it is now. You raise the water table, this is what it does. It hurts people. It destroys pavement. It destroys the sub-base and so forth. And none of that is, what does it do? What did it do over here on Joe's Place and the senior center? The drainage system doesn't work. All those calculations that to protect people from overflowing and so forth and treatment, it doesn't work because the water table is supposed to be 1 foot, seasonal high water table, supposed to be 1 foot below the bottom of the retention pond. It's not. It's not. This is in the same vicinity as Maxine. Maxine's property is flooded, Maxine Trainer. And so when you pipe a ditch, or when you seal all these cracks and the joints that may be leaking or something like that, their exfiltration of the water that lowers the water table. When you raise the water table, this is what you get, what I just described to you. So what you're doing is and the question is, I do not know what these areas are that is being put in. But I think you ought to look at those particular areas for septic tanks and drain fields, for whether the pavement is close to failing. And this is what the city has done. It's the same thing what city has done in other areas. So in other areas, for example, the area between I-95 and the Ridge, because we have those 5 floodways that are heavily choked with vegetation that the city refuses to have maintained. In violation of FEMA regulations, in violation of stormwater management of Greater Titusville, of our own codes. So the city is heavily involved in fraud, and I'm giving you at least 2 examples, is the $65 million when you mislead the public on the budget is balanced. It's not balanced, and we can't print money. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not an accountant. I'm just a stupid engineer, worthless engineer, as far as what you have told so many people for the last 20 months. of a report that doesn't exist. So anyhow, you know, I've mentioned in letters, shysters and so forth, and I've said the same thing that I read to you, is that I put this email out and I say, if there's any errors in it, let me know. I'll ask you to call me. You don't call. City manager hasn't talked to me in probably, well, since 2 months after he was granted the position of city manager. That's what we have, closed doors. Closed doors from Robert Jordan, from Sarah Stokel, Mrs. Nelson, the mayor, city manager, Mr. Diesel. So we have a non-communication, and that's what it is. So we're on a path of the death to discussion. Might makes right, and you guys are the might. And you're making decisions that are dishonest. You won't discuss, you won't debate them. So anyhow, let's go to the next one. Work order for engineering programming services for the Osprey Water Reclamation Facility. And that I'm opposed to that because it's questionable again because of this. The city needs to step back and review what's going on. We're not really balancing our budget. We need to be truthful to the public, and we're not. So I'm opposed to that for that very reason. I should also mention, as far as the, should have mentioned that the Guyman-Hirschberg principle that it's in the freshwater management study, that's incorrect as far as the benefits that we get from raising the water table is not correct. It's a misapplication of it because we need to have what's called a confined aquifer for the Guyman-Hirschberg principle to apply. So when we raise these water tables, we're thinking we're going to get 30 for 1 or something like that benefit of raising the freshwater lens. It's not true. It's not true at all. So you can check with me. I'll sign and seal it. Don't have any problems doing it, but it's not correct. So, and that's an important in your raising your water table. So let me go to the next one. Item 8J, I approve of that one. And I'm just hopeful that you guys will straighten up and change your path. The path right now is a path of self-destruction, just like my son did. And you need to straighten up. And well, both my sons did that. So you're in my prayers, and I'm hoping that you repent and that you have reconciliation for what you're doing, which is evil and malicious. Thank you.
Okay. I will say one comment, a personal observation. I'm not a hydrologist, but I do live on the waterfront, and we've had a heck of a wind out of the southeast and rains in the past 2 weeks. And I know the water is about 1.5 feet higher on our docks than it was. So if that has anything to do with raising the table, I don't know, but that's my observation. Next item, sir.
You'll need to vote on consent
Oh, I'm sorry.
and
we have a
accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve consent agenda items 8A through 8M.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Diesel,
Yes.
Member Stokel,
Yes.
Member Jordan,
Yes.
Member Nelson.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Next item, sir.
We're on to 9B, which is small-scale comprehensive plan amendment with rezoning SSA number 3-2020 Verona subdivision.
Mayor, at this time, I'll read the public hearing procedures
Yes,
related
sir.
to these
Go right
items.
ahead.
During the public hearing portion of the meeting, anyone wishing to speak on an item must first sign a public hearing agenda card and sign the oath contained thereon. These cards are located on the table on the side of the council chambers. Those speaking in favor of requests will be heard first, those opposed will be heard second, and those who wish to make a public comment on the item will speak third. The applicant may make a brief rebuttal if necessary. Witnesses may be cross-examined by the applicant, counsel, staff, representatives, as authorized by counsel. If you have photographs, sketches, or documents that you desire for the city council to consider, they must be submitted into evidence and will be retained by the city. Please submit such exhibits to the city clerk. City clerk, have all persons wishing to speak before the city council signed a card?
Yes, sir.
If there is anyone present who has not signed an oath card that wishes to speak on an item, please submit a card at this time. City clerk, have all agenda items been properly advertised?
Yes, sir.
Have any council members visited any of the sites or spoken to any members of the public regarding the item to be reviewed?
I go by the site, and I have had communication with planning and zoning.
Excuse me?
On the Willow Creek, over there?
Microphone, sir.
I'm sorry, I had it on, I turned it off. Are we there, at Willow Creek?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and basically, and, you know, obviously discussed with you guys, but outside of that, I'm not very familiar with it.
The substance of the conversation and any opinions formed that you need to disclose?
No, just kind of an overview. No real opinions.
Member Nelson?
And I spoke to staff, I spoke to planning and zoning, and I think that was it.
Okay. And the substance of the discussion was?
Things we liked, things we didn't like, things we wanted to change.
Any opinions formed that you need to disclose?
I formed opinions on things that I would like to see changed in the code.
Well, I mean, specific to that project.
Specific to that project?
Yes, not the code.
I have ideas in the back of my head, so it's one of those, it's not totally formed, but I have some ideas. But, you know, the question is, you know, I'm gonna listen tonight, and it's either going to solidify what I think, or it's going to change my mind.
Okay. Anything else?
This time I'll read, this is item 9B, sorry. This is item 9B, which is small-scale comprehensive plan amendment with rezoning, SSA number 3, 2020 Verona subdivision. This proposition before you is the small-scale comprehensive plan amendment, which contains two ordinances. I'll read both ordinances at this time. Ordinance number 17, 2020, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances by amending ordinance number 60, 1988, which adopted the comprehensive plan of the City of Titusville by amending the land use designation on approximately 4.53 acres of land located in the Verona subdivision on Prosecco Lane, Moscato Drive, Fortuna Way, and Verdello Place, with parcel ID numbers 23, 35, 10, 50, I, 23, 35, 10, 50, J, 23, 35, 10, 50, K, 23, 35, 10, 50, V, and 23, 35, 10, 50, W, by replacing the conservation future land use designation with the medium density residential future land use designation and providing for an effective date. Ordinance number 18, 2020, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending ordinance number 5, 1993 of the City of Titusville, Florida, by amending the zoning map made a part of said ordinance by reference, by replacing the open space and recreation OR zoning district with a single-family high-density R1C zoning district on approximately 4.53 acres of land located in the Verona subdivision on Prosecco Lane, Moscato Drive, Fortuna Way, and Verdello Place, with parcel ID numbers 23, 35, 10, 50, I, 23, 35, 10, 50, J, 23, 35, 10, 50, K, 23, 35, 10, 50, V, and 23, 35, 10, 50, W, and providing for an effective date.
At their September 16th, 2020 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of both ordinances 5-2. Additionally, the Planning and Zoning Commission further recommended, and this is a change, 7-0, that staff review the subdivision and development process to prevent the filling of wetlands prior to the change of open space OR recreation zoning and conservation land use. Rodney Cunningham, representing KB Homes of Orlando, Florida, LLC, is requesting a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment to amend the boundaries of the conservation land use designation and open space and recreation OR zoning district. The intent of this request is to correct future land use and zoning on a 4.53 acres that are not wetlands or not impacted by wetlands, for which heavy required mitigation is complete in order to amend the Verona plat, formerly known as the Willow Creek Phase 1. Verona Willow Creek Phase 1 sketch plat was approved by City Council on June 12, 2018, and the applicant held a community meeting to discuss the additional 18 lots on November 12, 2019.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I've been advised we have to handle these separately, the two items. So City Manager has introduced the item. City staff, do you have any comments you'd like to bring to the first item?
Well, actually, these items, I think they go together, so I only have one set of comments. But there are two separate ordinances. The applicant's requesting a small-scale amendment and rezoning in order to designate several small irregularly shaped areas totaling 4.5 acres to be designated as residential from its current wetlands, conservation, open space, and recreation designation. The site was rezoned originally to a mixture of single-family, medium residential, R1B, and open space in 2002. At the time, it was known as Willow Creek. It was subsequently rezoned to multifamily medium density, R2, in 2016. The Willow Creek Phase 1 plat has a total of 61 single-family residential lots and some common areas which were approved and accepted by City Council on June in 2020. The plat currently known as Verona was approved with several common area tracts. The common area tracts at the time were designated as parks with the note that the intention was for these tracts to be changed into residential lots. The note, which is shown in your, it's enlarged so that it's much easier to read, was part of the sketch plat approval, and it requires that after this process, the next thing that would happen should this be approved is that the sketch plat will have to be amended, which will go back through the public hearing process. Then the preliminary plat would have to be approved before any additional development in that area. This project has caused a great deal of conversation, so I thought I would give you some history. In 2019, the applicant came to the city and was talking about the preliminary plat and the sketch plat process. And at that time, these 18 lots were designated as wetlands. The staff told the developer at that time that we could not recommend that wetlands be rezoned or developed as single family because that was inconsistent with the land use and the zoning. However, conservation land use has two zoning categories which are permitted: open space recreation and PUD. In the case of open space recreation, which this existing zoning allows several uses, including parks, both private and public, tennis courts, golf courses, and bed and breakfast. A conditional use permit is required for 1 unit per 5 acres should they want to put a residence on that. The applicant at that time chose to move forward with this project, designating those areas as parks, which is permitted under the OR zoning, with the note as part of the sketch plat that the intent was, after the mitigation was complete for the wetland impacts, that they would then come back, which is where they are now. The environmental analysis that was included in your package starts on page 183, but I'm going to be reading from about 188 on. And to let you know that originally a conceptual permit was permitted in May of 2005. A modification of the conceptual permit was transferred to KB Home. And previously issued construction permits were authorized for the entrance road and a Phase 1 for Willow Creek. There were no impacts were completed, and although portions of the mitigation plan were implemented. The Wetland Creek Phase 1 contains 14.17 acres of forested wetlands. The application proposes 6.5 acres of wetland impacts, of which 0.92 acre of wetland impacts consists of an isolated, less than half-acre wetland. Wetland A includes some small fringe impacts to forested ephemeral wetlands. Ephemeral wetlands are those which are relatively short-lived based on how much rain has been occurred. Impacts to wetlands B are proposed for the entrance road, lot development, and elements of the master stormwater management plan. It should be noted that the comprehensive plan does allow wetlands to be utilized for stormwater management. Wetland C impact is isolated less than half an acre in size. And the applicant, on wetland D, the applicant must impact 1.96 acres of wetlands for the construction of the access road. The wetland impact C1 consists of fringe wetland impacts, while the remainder of the on-site wetlands will be preserved. In addition to that, there were secondary wetland impacts which were also mitigated. To offset the direct and secondary impacts, the applicant proposes the preservation of 56.13 acres of high-quality forested wetlands, 4.05 acres of high-quality pine flatwoods abutting the wetland preservation areas within Phase 1 and the Willow Creek plan development. If you have any questions about this, happy to answer what I can.
Council, if you have any questions, I don't see any lights. Now, remember, we're dealing with these separately.
May I?
Okay, here we go. Member Nelson.
Thank you.
Mayor, I just want to point out, the small scale we're handling together, you will just vote on each ordinance separately. The presentation and discussion will be on the small scale together. You'll just vote on each ordinance separately.
Okay,
There won't be separate presentations.
okay. Very good. Member Nelson.
Thank you. Peggy, what we saw in June designated these areas as parks, correct?
Yes, ma'am, but there was also a indication that the intent was to move forward to designate these areas as subdivision sites. That was shown on the sketch plat.
You got in the little corner in the tiny writing.
Yes, and I actually blew it up for all of you so you could read it in your agenda package.
Okay, can you tell me what it says?
Of course. It says procedure to convert park tracks I, J, and K to residential lots. Proposed community park tracks I, J, and K, which is land currently zoned OR with the intent to convert to R1C zoning and single-family lots in the future, subject to the following methodology. The total of 18 lots, land designated as park tracks I, J, and K. Wetland jurisdictional line verified by St. John's. Step 2, St. John's permit approved for wetland impacts. Step 3, wetland mitigation credits purchased. Step 4, apply for rezoning of park tracks I, J, and K from OR to R1C. Step 5, apply for rezoning land use on the park tracks I, J, and K from conservation to single-family residential. Step 6, rezoning and future land use change approved by city. Step 7, sketch plat approved to allow additional lots within the park tracks I, J, and K, approximately 18 lots. And 8, city council reviews the sketch plat amendment.
Okay, so as I understand it, we should have seen this prior to these wetlands being built. Am I right?
You should have seen what?
The rezoning.
Well, that is, let me go back and give you some history about the way that this has
Okay.
been done in the past. I have identified 3 ways in which these wetland lines have been done by the city in the past. The first was, for several years, the staff actually administratively changed lines on the map if there was shown to be an error.
Right.
And
Okay, got that.
that was stopped in the that was stopped in the 90s. The
Okay.
second way that I have seen this done is that conditional use permits were issued in order to fill the wetlands. That was also stopped in sometime prior to about 2005. That conditional use permit process no longer exists in the code.
Okay, it's just not in the code?
Just
Is
not in the
there-
code.
Is there a reason?
I don't know. I did not find any change. I was looking actually for projects. The third thing that I saw was that in the past, there has been the rezoning after the mitigation has been provided. Now, so that is perhaps what you're talking about, actually seeing the zoning after the mitigation has been approved. Whether the mitigation had been conducted at that time, I don't believe so. I believe it was simply approved. I also found one other project, and that is a project for which mitigation was approved. The project that, it was multifamily and a single-family combination. That project then was abandoned, and a new project came in. The new project actually had fewer wetland impacts, so that if the change had occurred at the zoning at the time that the wetland mitigation occurred, but before the actual development, then 2 acres of wetlands would no longer be designated conservation on the future land use map.
So basically, we need ground truthing to determine what are wetlands, correct?
We currently have in our code a requirement that a survey be provided showing the wetlands themselves. So I think that the policy question going forward is, does the council want to say, it's good enough that mitigation has been authorized by the council, and we will then rezone or consider rezoning the wetlands after St. John's has said the mitigation has been approved? Or do you want to wait until the actual mitigation has occurred? And the only way that there's an option for this is not in a site plan, because remember, the uses that are being permitted in the OR are parks, tennis courts, golf courses, and bed and bath, so bed and breakfast. So the likelihood that any of those things would be on a commercial site plan is small to none. So in the event that someone were to do what happened here, which is the park was designated based on the fact that the staff could not support a rezoning to the residential because it was still a wetland.
Understand that. I guess my issue, and it's nothing against Mr. Honeycutt, he's done a beautiful job on this. But I guess my issue is, it came before us, and here we have a little area up here. Basically, this is what we're going to do with it. And we're looking at something that is showing us parks. And at least for me, I won't speak for the rest of them, but at least for me, I was like, that's cool, we got parks. You know, the idea is we're supposed to have areas of housing with amenities in it so that people aren't traveling 5 miles to go to a park, that there's a park there for them. So I was very happy with it, and the report didn't say anything about these parks are going to go away. And I will say that I was not happy that St. John's was making decisions about my community. Okay, sort of.
I don't think that's fair. The comprehensive plan says that we will coordinate the permitting of wetlands with the St. Johns River Water Management District. They haven't made any decision on land use.
I think my problem is, and this is an exaggeration, obviously, but if I have 10 acres of wetland someplace, Do I want St. John's making a decision that we should fill that 10 acres? What if it's 20 acres? Do we want St. John's saying, because that's impacting our community and our way of life.
Yes, ma'am, but what other option do you have? As far as the actual filling of the wetland?
That it's reviewed. Let me say, if this had come to me back in June, and I would have seen that we're filling these wetlands, I think they were probably already filled at that point, but I think that's what Mr. Honeycutt told Planning and Zoning. That might have impacted the way I looked at the project. And so I sort of wanted to know and make that decision prior to St. John's coming in and saying, let's fill all this.
Yes, ma'am, I heard what you said about the land use, but what you said was the wetlands were already.
They were already filled.
Yes, ma'am, so
Yeah.
that is consistent with what our comprehensive plan says about how we look to those permitting agencies to do that work.
And I don't have a problem with them doing that. I have a problem with us not having that little stamp saying, yeah, this is a good idea or not.
And I think that it would be not only extraordinarily helpful for staff, but consistent with what the Planning and Zoning Board recommended, that after the specific discussion about this project, that council would direct us on to how to do this in the future.
Yep.
Because it's clearly been done several different ways in the past. And the concern that staff had was, we bring to you a wetland and then ask you to rezone it.
I'd actually rather see it done that way.
And that direction from the council would be very helpful for us.
Peggy, I'd rather see it done that way.
That, as I
Yeah.
said, that would be very helpful, because as we were discussing this at a staff level, we said, how do we bring a wetland to the council and then say, now we're asking you to rezone that wetland?
Yeah.
And so,
We need,
so this policy direction, separate and apart from whatever happens on this project, would be very helpful going forward.
well, I don't know how to make that happen. I figured you guys did.
How to make what happen?
That we look at it beforehand and say, this is a wetland, do we change it or not?
We can make that work.
You can make
Yes,
it
ma'am,
work.
we can.
Okay.
But we just need to know what the preferences of council as to whether you want to be in the position of the Planning and Zoning Board and the public saying to you, you're rezoning a wetland.
If I could make a suggestion, right after we vote on this section,
Yes.
we can
Go
deal
back.
with that
Go
particular item.
Yeah, and if the mayor, with the mayor's permission, I'd also like to see us discuss, we're talking about doing subdivisions with no playground in it. And that's apparently appropriate right now. And we're talking about our motto is live, work, and play here. And the same issue. Do we want to build just squares of houses with no park for the kids? Okay.
Vice Mayor, are you through, man? You through?
I'm going to,
Go right ahead.
well, based on your words and guidance, I will defer because I was going to speak to that. So if you want to vote first.
No, I'm saying when we get through voting on SSA 3-.
Okay, then I'll be quick because I'm kind of summarizing. I have some of the same concerns, and it is just quickly summarized. I'm concerned a lot of changes took place since the last time we saw this. And with the changes that have taken place, we should probably get in the middle there somewhere, because, we approved, 61 homes, parks, and not all the wetlands, but between the time we approved what we approved to where we're at now, we're from 61 to 79 homes. We've eliminated parks and wetlands were covered up. Correct? No.
No, I think that's, covered up
Okay.
is one way to say it. But I think
Filled.
that Mr. Honeycutt may have a comment about the parks for the entire Verona project. Because you're looking at one phase, and my understanding is that they have just been given permission to do planning for this entire project. So it's a little difficult when you're looking at a small piece when you know there's a bigger project coming.
Right, and I agree with that, but from our perspective, my perspective, as you can see, you see every week, we don't just deal with this. We deal with a lot of stuff, sometimes longer than others. And so for me to go back and try to remember every fact of what we voted on and approved back in June, I need a little bit more update than just looking at this now and saying, boy, is that different? I just think that we got, and I appreciate you saying we need the input and we'll try to work better on that. Nobody's doing anything wrong on purpose. I just feel like we've got a whole different cat here.
Member Jordan?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the discussion, but I actually, I'm looking at what planning and zoning did, and they did vote in the positive to go forward with this thing, 5-2. The question I think I'm hearing from Member Nelson, which I agree with, I think we just need to look at the process. I think that was the big problem. Whether the cart went before the horse or whatever, the bottom line is everybody did what they were supposed to do. They didn't do anything illegally, in my mind, as far as what the process required. It was nothing illegal. You may not like what the process was, but it was done in the proper way, but it caused a lot of confusion when it came back, when you already did the mitigation, and now you're asking for something after the fact. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, and if I could, the applicant wanted to do it the other way. So if there is anybody who needs to jump on a grenade on this, then it should be me. Because we honestly did not feel like there was any good way out of this.
All right.
And had there been a consistent way of doing this for all the years in the city, I think we would have known that, but we didn't. So if you have concerns about the process, this is solely on the shoulders, and I'll take full responsibility for what happens in my department. But the applicant did as the staff asked him to do.
Right, right. And that's the way I understood it.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Member Stokel, do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you. I had an opportunity to kind of go over this agenda earlier today with.
You're fading in and out on us. Can you get closer to the mic, maybe?
Yeah, sorry, is that better?
Much better.
Okay. Yeah, I had the opportunity to kind of go over this with Ms. Bisaka earlier today, and I just want to echo, I think, what everyone else is saying. I think our issue right now is the process of what's happening. As Member Jordan kind of alluded to already, I think that they were acting, within what they were able to do. I think we probably should handle, the voting on the two ordinances now, and then I do want to kind of go over the process because I do think, I wish that we would have been aware of this prior. And kind of what Member Nelson and the Vice Mayor were kind of already saying, it's kind of like, oh, here you go, and it was completely different than what we had originally anticipated. So I think everyone, staff, the applicant, all of us would like to see the process improve, and that's what I look forward to doing.
Anything else? Or,
That's all for right now, thank you.
okay. Did you want to speak, sir?
No, sir. I was just going to suggest when you're finished that we'll call the cards.
Yeah, I'm getting to that part. Okay, there's no further questions. I see no other lights. I'll open the public hearing. Clerk, call the speakers by card. Applicant first, please, if there is
Yes,
one.
sir. Here's your applicant, Rodney Honeycutt.
Good evening, sir. Name and address, please, for the record.
Good evening. Rodney Honeycutt, 3700 South Washington Avenue in Titusville. I was going to go over the details of this, but I think that staff went over that pretty well, so I'm going to address it a little different. First, I don't, from the questions that were asked, I don't think most people understand the issue. But and everywhere except here, when you plan a new subdivision, here being Titusville, when you plan a new subdivision and there are wetland impacts you have, then you address those in the process when you go through the first time. And so that's the alternates that Ms. Basaka was talking about. We couldn't address these wetland areas as being lots the first time because the interpretation of the code was it didn't allow it. And so the way we had to do it was we prepared preliminary engineering plans and a sketch plat. That sketch plat came to P&Z and this council. And as Ms. Basaka explained, the included in that sketch plat that came to City Council, it went through this process of how we had to go through this. So what that meant, the bottom line to that is we could not fill the wetlands as lots the first time because it was not allowed, it was interpretation, it was not allowed by the code. But we could fill them if we designating as a tract that could be a park. And so that's what we did. And so then we came back with the plat, that's what you referred to in June, and it was exactly like the sketch plat. It showed those tracks, as we said, parks. And so between the time the sketch plat was approved and the plat was approved, what happened is the contractor, we had all our other permits, St. John's, the Corps of Engineers, we had all those permits, and so those wetlands were filled. And so once they were filled, we were allowed to come back through this process and rezone. Now, I need to tell you something else. The areas that we could not use were OR zone. Now, OR zones are not just wetlands. They're open space and recreation and include wetland areas. And so many years ago, the city took the National Wetland Inventory Map, which is 50% right, and they said, all these areas that have wetlands, we're going to make OR zone. So there was OR zone in this area. It happens that in most of the cases on this subdivision, there's less wetlands than there was OR zone. And so that's just for your information. It's not all of the area of the OR zone was wetlands. But as a matter of fact, most of it is the fringe area. And so anyway, we've gone through the process and we're back here tonight. It was explained in the sketch plat process that these areas that were going to be designated as park tracts were going to come back as lots. And so that's what we're doing. And as far as parks go, you picked on the wrong project because this is a 660 acre site and there's going to be 224 acres preserved plus of wetlands plus parks. So all we're asking is that when the fringe area of wetlands come into the proposed lots in a subdivision, in the proposed subdivision, that we're allowed to make those lots. Now, if you look at the plat, or you look at that sketch plat, it's not a solid row of lots all the way around. We avoided wetlands in several cases. And in this case, in this particular subdivision, there are no lots that back up to another lot. They either back up to large wetlands that are remained in preserves in perpetuity, or they back up to a stormwater pond. And so As Ms. Basaka said, the owner, KB Homes, has also authorized us to do the next two phases. And by going the next two phases, they have a large amenity area that will come in as part of that also. And there will be other amenity areas. This is a small subdivision, part of the overall. The other ones are larger, and some of them will have their own amenity tracks inside, in addition to the large amenity area. You need more lots if you have an amenity area for the homeowners to be able to afford to keep that amenity area up, and this one don't have a lot of lots in it. I think there's less than 80 lots when we are able to change this OR zone to lots. So I say there are no parks going away. We're adding parks in the long run. And this was all outlined. I think it was June of 2018 when the sketch plat came through, because this was the process the city explained that we needed to go through. And so I hope I explained it better or more so you could understand it. But if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer.
Anyone have any questions? Member Nelson?
I have questions. Rodney, I have to say, I'm not upset with you because the whole project was great. I'm just sort of upset at the way this turned out and how we got to it. How do other areas of the county deal with this issue?
It would have all been dealt with up front, and there wouldn't have been any coming back a second time. So the contractor owner took a big risk.
Yeah.
Where you wouldn't have had a risk at all if you'd have been in Cocoa, Palm Bay, Brevard County, City of Melbourne. It wouldn't have been like that.
Okay. Would he, let me ask you this, would he be amenable to, and this is just sort of the way I'm looking at it, is we voted on it thinking these were going to be parks, taking a piece of it, making it a park, and allowing you to go ahead with the rest of the lots?
My first answer is you also voted on it knowing that we were coming back and asking all of those to be lots. And
If I had read the fine print, which I probably couldn't read, then I don't know.
it's not a fine print. I mean, it's not a fine print at all. And so I'm sorry that you think that way. But I can't speak for them, but I'm sure that they feel that these all should be lots.
Okay. Had to ask. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Is that it for now?
Yes, unless somebody else has questions.
Any other questions? I see just Member Nelson. Turn your light off, please.
Oh, excuse me.
Okay. Clerk, please read the next card.
Oh, yes, sir. If it is appropriate at this time, I want to share that 4 individuals emailed comments ahead of time. There were Dwight Severs, Mary Spar, who I believe is here and has submitted a card while she's here, Marley Spreckle, and William Klein. And that was distributed to you. The next person here is Tony Shipolo.
Tony Schifolo, 715 Tropic Street. I stand before you tonight as a concerned citizen with a vested interest in preserving the environment of our city, even in the face of inevitable progress. I urge council to not value developers' dollars more than taxpayers' dollars needed to correct polluted stormwater runoff and ecological degradation from their developments. As the owner of one of 12 locally designated historic structures and a member of the Historic Preservation Board, I am also heavily vested in preserving the history of northern Brevard County, which includes preservation of the Indian River Lagoon and the St. Johns River wetlands. Nature is the holder of history. As a member of the tree team, we've been working to preserve not only the grand and diverse tree canopy within our city, but also the overall ecological surroundings, which include the wetlands.
I am outraged by the devious method used by the developer of the Verona subdivision to skirt my city's comprehensive plan and land development regulations. When told by staff that his desired zoning couldn't be attained on wetlands, he went around the city to get permitted and mitigated by the St. John's Water Management to fill the wetlands. Then came to the city claiming there were no wetlands, so changed the zoning. The developer told planning and zoning that since the city of Titusville does not have a wetland ordinance, he was allowed to go to St. John's Water Management. He explained that because staff said he couldn't change the zoning with wetlands involved, he just filled them in and now requests zoning changes on land now devoid of wetlands. Because of our conservation land use does not control the filling of wetlands, the city cannot stop the filling if someone has a permit from St. John's. Some members of P&Z, feeling that the project should not be penalized for following staff suggestions, voted to allow his request to come before City Council. However, there's a very important proposal from P&Z that staff review the subdivision and development process to prevent the filling of wetlands prior to requesting change to open space and recreation zoning and conservation land use, with the intent of preventing the filling of wetlands, period. I urge council to consider this proposal and request a wetland ordinance to prevent this type of underhanded workaround to happen again in our city. Remember, we are the ancestors that our descendants are remembering. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next card, please.
Kay St. Ange.
Name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Kay St. Ange, and I live at 2360 Maryland Avenue. I watched the P&Z meeting online and was very interested in their third motion. This motion was that staff review the subdivision development process to prevent the filling of wetlands prior to any decision changing conservation land use and open space and recreation zoning. And this motion was unanimously approved according to the minutes. Your agenda says differently, but it was unanimously approved. I wish to support this motion for staff review and make a comment on this motion. The comprehensive plan indicates wetlands 5 acres or more shall be a designated conservation land use. The land development regulations indicate that they provide protection of wetland areas identified in the conservation land use category. I understand from the September 16 P&Z minutes that the Verona applicant filled in the wetlands on the land designated conservation land use prior to receiving an approval for change from conservation land use designation to medium-density residential land use. Then I also understand that he cleared and filled an area dedicated to community park zoned open space and recreation prior to receiving approval for rezoning to single-family high-density. And you have been talking about that, and you have also said it's the process that's broken. Each of you have said that, and I think that is what P&Z was trying to get across with their third motion, is the process is broken. It needs to be reviewed. We need to think differently and provide those protections that the comprehensive plan indicates to wetlands, to parklands, and this subdivision of 61 acres, they said they were going to provide parkland. Now they say, oh, no, we wrote it so you should have known we were going to make it single-family subdivision, single-family residences, not parkland. Somehow this just doesn't sit well with me, and I don't think it sits well with you either. I think we need to have council direct staff to review this process. You can't put the cart before the horse, as Mr. Jordan says. You have to do the process in the order that the land development regulations stipulate. And then I think we'll see some changes that wetlands are protected as the comprehensive plan stipulates. That's what I would ask of you, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Next card, please.
Stan Johnston.
Stan Johnston, 860 Poinsettia Avenue, registered professional engineer. I put my card in on this agenda item as neither. I don't know what's the best decision to be made here, but I would like to comment on how this, part of this came about. Is that some time ago, is that wetlands was considered something that was something we need to fill, something that we need to use the word improve on. Of course, now we know more the value of wetlands. But even during that period of time, is these small wetlands that are away from the larger wetlands was a number of times written as something that is a disintegrating type of wetlands. The word wasn't disintegrating, but it was a wetland that was in trouble, and it's not it is of very little importance. And I don't like to say that in a way because so many people say, oh, it's wetlands, it's important. But the city of Titusville pulled a real trick back in 1993. Is what they did was this rezoning of properties to OR zoning, unknown to many, many property owners. They didn't contact the property owners. They rezoned it citywide. Council members were told, do it, don't tell the public, just do it. The quickest, the best. What is it? Lady Macbeth said, better done quickly or don't do it at all. What the city did was rezone these property, and my conversation with one of the persons of city staff said that the chief planner in that particular case said what the city did was illegal. In fact, there's a pencil line, maybe something like 50 foot wide, and it says in the soil survey, it was done using also the soil survey, not just a wetland map. And a soil survey was more what it was done from, not just a wetland map. And it was full of errors. It's full of errors. And that's what Mrs. Bisaka was talking about, is sometimes these errors were just corrected administratively. So we just saw an example not too long ago of the property right next to the water tower was brought in here, and it was brought in for zoning and so forth, and it showed that the OR zoning was very wrong. It did misrepresent the wetland coverage. So,
Time is up.
thank you. Neither is mine.
Applicant, would you like to, Ms. Honeycutt, make a rebuttal?
Excuse me, Mary Spar.
Oh, I'm sorry, you got one more?
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, I thought that was the last one. Usually is.
Good evening, members of the City Council, Mayor Johnson. I'm Mary Spar. I live in Cocoa, and I wrote what I was going to say, but now you're going to hear something just a little bit different. I did send an email yesterday, and I asked you to focus on the third motion of P&Z, which was unanimously approved. The process needs to be looked at, and if changes need to be made, please instruct staff to make some recommendations accordingly. I do believe Titusville can do better. Mr. Honeycutt is right. These other local government jurisdictions don't have this problem. We can fix the process. Part of it is that, for example, in the county, there's land use planning policies, and then there's a permitting side to these developments. Okay, well, the county handles the land use planning through their comprehensive plan and their ordinances. For example, you have land use planning policies like, at a minimum, wetlands 5 acres or more in size shall be designated as conservation land use, and permitted uses within conservation land use areas shall be limited to residences. show uses of 1 unit per 5 acres, and so on. County has a very similar one. And conditional uses may be considered. County has that too. But what happens is the developer goes into the county, and as soon as they get there, these land use planning policies are clearly identified. You get your agenda item, and the Natural Resources Department has listed it. Wetland impacts which shall be limited to, it's 1 residential unit per 5 acres, which translates in the county to 1.8% of the total site area, okay? So all this is done up front, and the applicant knows what he can do. And then the applicant can go to the St. John's and asked for wetlands impacts that are consistent with the land use planning policies of the county. Same occurs in Palm Bay. They have 1 residential unit per 5 acres if it's septic. May I have some extra time, please?
Is it absolutely necessary, ma'am? Because we're doing what you have recommended right after you're done.
Sir, I've worked on
would
this
you
for
like another minute,
25 years. I really
Would you
would
like
like
ano-
some extra time.
Would you like 1
I-
minute? Will that do? How much time would you like, ma'am?
If you don't mind.
I-
Ma'am?
I would make a motion to give her an extra 2 minutes.
Thank you. Okay.
I have a
Titusville,
motion and a second. Vote, please.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Member Stokel?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Go right ahead, ma'am.
okay. Let me get back to this. Okay. I urge you to follow through on this, and I urge you to see the difference between, I urge you to recognize what you're saying by defer to the St. John's. That really needs to be recognized. I've heard this for 25 years, and what should be said is defer to the St. John's on permitting, but not on land use planning. In fact, it got so bad in the county that they had to write a new policy which says, wetlands regulations adopted by Brevard County shall avoid duplication of wetland regulations, and where wetland degradation or destruction has been permitted by FDP or St. John's, the county shall apply the land use and density requirements. So there's two parts to this. Ms. Busaka knows this very well. And I do believe that Titusville can get the order of this a little better and recognize that we don't defer to the St. John's on land use planning. That is a state mandated requirement by the Growth Management Act. But we do avoid duplication on permitting, just like the county does. And I look forward to further discussion on this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other cards, clerk?
No, sir.
Rodney?
So my last comments would be, planning and zoning heard the same thing you did. They recommend approval 5-2. It came before you in the sketch plat, and it laid this out, and that we followed it exactly so far. We still have to come back again with a sketch plat. This isn't the only time I have to come through this. And so I want to remind you of that, and so please don't punish my client for the way process. Secondly, it's a little off board. Things are going great, even though we've had a COVID process. The economy is doing good, and there's a lot of development. Anytime that happens, you get the anti-development coming out. And that's good, that's fair. You get both sides, you get to hear both sides. But don't call me devious and don't call me dishonest. It pisses me off. I just have to say that. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the first time I've ever seen you get upset. Thank you, Rodney. Any questions?
Yes, please. And it's really not a question, because even before you got fired up, I was going to say, because I didn't want you to leave that podium, because I hope you can remember, because clearly I don't remember everything, but I hope you can remember that every time you stand up there, I tend to have a tendency to say, man, I wish everybody did it like that. I don't know of anybody who stands up there as a developer and in your position who tries to make it work for everybody. You've probably met with more people who live in the areas and, made it work. They want, 15 or 20-foot buffer. You say, you know what, I can go 30. You can't always, but if you can, you do. So I do want to make that clear that, and I've certainly been on tape enough time saying it, and it's because it's true. So it probably would have carried more weight if you hadn't gotten fired up, and it looks like I'm responding to your fire up. I'm not.
No.
I've said that more than once.
I know you do.
So that being said, I appreciate it, and your fairness always helps everybody, and I appreciate it. The process, I'm certain we're going to address the process, but outside of that, it sounds like you can give us some examples that work better. So we'll go from there. Thank you, Rodney.
All I'll say is hear to what he said. You do a fine job, Rodney. All right. Thank you, sir.
Mayor, if I could.
Oh, sorry.
And I would agree with him. I was upset because I felt like back in June, somebody had pointed out my vision isn't super great. It's better now. I could see now, but back then I couldn't. And I wish somebody had pointed that out to us. Not that you knew to point it out, and maybe staff didn't know to point it out, and maybe I didn't realize that I needed to check out the fine print. But I also had a question for you. So this is what we're looking at, correct, for the whole area?
That's a conceptual plan, it looks like from here.
And this allows a proposed conservation easement. I don't know if you could see it.
I'm not sure.
Yes, ma'am, that shows the conservation easement area.
Okay, which is actually bigger than your area you're developing. It looks it.
That doesn't sound right. I think it's about a third of the development will be in conservation, just from my memory.
That particular conservation easement is 74 acres.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I have a copy of it right here.
Oh, okay, there is, and yes, in this subdivision, there is conservation, there's no question, yes.
Is this already done? I mean.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, already. Okay. So I have to back up a little bit.
Thank you.
I do every now and then. Okay. There is, I did see a deed giving the 74 acres over, which I appreciate. Thank you. And I hope I didn't upset you too much.
I'm good. I'm always good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing. Council discussion on this? Any further discussion? I think we can handle the other items separate from this would be the best thing to do.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, if you're ready.
We're voting on SSA number 3/2020.
Yes.
Yes, sir, you may.
Okay, I move that we approve small-scale comprehensive plan amendment with rezoning number SSA number 3-2020 Verona subdivision.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any
Yeah,
further?
we'll need the ordinance as identified as ordinance number 17-2020 on this vote.
Okay, with ordinance number 17-2020.
Second holds.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Vice Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Member Jordan?
Yes.
Member Nelson? Yes. Mayor Johnson?
Yes, passes unanimously.
Mr. Mayor?
I will need another motion for ordinance number 18, 2020.
I was just about to do that.
He was going to do that.
I'm going to do that. Thank you. I move that we approve ordinance number 18, 2020, amending ordinance number 5-1993 of the city of Titusville. Do I have to read all of it? Is that enough? Okay.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Member Jordan?
Yes.
Member Nelson?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes?
Vice Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Next item. Oh, yeah, we got to,
Do we need that as motion or just advisability?
Advisability is fine, ma'am.
Okay.
And I think Peggy's.
I think Peggy's
a lot
got
of
it.
your notes already.
Did we get the other part that we would like to see if we could do parks in each of the subdivisions?
Yes, ma'am, I wrote that down.
Okay.
I think that the
Depending on,
new comprehensive plan, we talked about a level of service of having a walkable park within half a mile or a
Yes.
quarter mile. Because right now, we've got a level of service for parks that we far exceed because we have so many beautiful parks in Titusville. So we're thinking that changing that level of service to an availability may be something that the council would be more comfortable with. That way, even if, as Mr. Honeycutt said, a 61 unit subdivision can't afford to have a park, there's a park within walking distance.
Right.
Would that be along the line of what you're thinking?
that's along the line of
Okay.
what I was thinking, because, you know, if you go in and you build a subdivision and you got 20 houses,
Right.
you know, a park is probably not appropriate, as long as there's something in the area.
Okay, well, that's what we've been talking about, so I can bring that information back.
Okay.
did you make a motion?
Oh, I don't.
I don't, sir, I
Just
don't
an
believe we need a
advisability?
motion. We're looking for a staff advisability from
Okay, we
council
don't need a motion on that.
to
All
bring
right,
something back to you.
That's the end of it. That's the end of that, right? Yep. Nothing else. Okay,
You sure? Okay.
ordinances first reading, there is none. Old business, none. New business.
Yes, sir, we're on item 12A, which is advisability regarding home-based businesses. On September 22nd, 2020, a citizen requested the city amend the code to allow client visits to a site at a home-based businesses. At the time, council directed staff to provide a report with information and options to review. Attached is a staff report outlining the current city and county code related to home-based businesses known as home occupations in the county, and code enforcement comments and options for council's consideration.
All right. I guess I go through the same thing again. City staff, do you have any comments on this or presentation?
I'd be happy to answer any questions, make a short presentation, but I think that that there's people here who want to speak also. But I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I see none. I think I see none. Council, you don't have any questions? I'm going to open the public hearing. Do we have cards on this item, Claire?
Yes, sir, we do. One card, Deidre Haynes Waller.
Please come up.
I'm Deidre Haynes Waller at 1105 Wedgewood Lane, and I've been speaking with Ms. Busaka, and I just wanted to know tonight if you guys had a chance to look at it and make a decision on the home-based business. Of course, we all know why I'm here, and I did review the counties as well as Ms. Busaka and the reports that she has as far as code enforcement coming out. Like I said, what is to be reviewed is not the same as a business that will be operating full-time, so I don't see that being a problem. So I'm just here to get you guys to let me know.
What is it you're asking for?
I'm asking that you allow me to at least just work in my home and have someone come into the home to do an amendment to the orders that they sent in to you guys. It should be, I didn't bring the paperwork up here because I thought you all had a copy of it, but, and the county does allow someone to come into your home and you work from there. Of course, like she said, with the pandemic, you all have a lot of people that are working from their homes. So I just want to do it legal, want to do it the right way, and I just ask you guys to approve that. I would be the only one that would be working in my home. I won't have any other employees. It will just be myself servicing, and that's it.
Okay. I'm going to take her light off for a minute. I'm going to ask staff. Ms. Pasaka, do you have any recommendations on this, or?
Well, I think that, assuming that you're not interested in keeping the process as it is, we have identified.
It's up to.
Well, yeah, there are three options we've identified. One, don't make any changes. That does not help Ms. Haynes-Waller and several other people, I'm sure, that are working from home and may not have come in and got to ask for a BTR. The second option is one that would allow the neighbors to have some input. That would be a conditional use permit. And that would say that there would be, you know, the process, we notify everybody within 500 feet, we let them know what's happening. And then the third would be a limited use, which would be you as council direct us to come up with conditions under which these can be done in the home. That would be pretty similar to what the county has, but let me tell you the difference between the county and the city. The county, or let me start with the city. The city says you can be a home occupation, but you can't have anybody come in to your home. So the area is very broad, the number of uses that you can do. For instance, you could be a lawn service in the county, in the city, because you mow other people's lawns. You can't do that in the county. The county has the allowance that you can bring people into the home. You can even have an employee in the home, although that's not what Ms. Haynes-Waller is asking. You can put a sign up in the county, 1 square foot, saying this is a business, but the number of uses are very limited. So you could be an accountant, you could be some of the other include dental lab technicians who frequently make people's teeth, like I have a lot of in my mouth, at their home because, you know, it looks like probably less effort than making a model airplane as far as the amount of space taken up, not less effort as far as the work. You could be an engineer, a real estate broker, an interior decorator, a fishing guide. You can do computer generated work, all of those things in the county. And you can have enough cars so that it looks like it's a residential neighborhood. And that means typically 2 cars in the driveway. The city says you just can't bring anybody to your house. Now, the whole issue of this has to do with enforcement. And these are the difficulties that code enforcement has. In order to know that you're doing a business, they have to see money change hands. So somebody has 2 cars on jacks up in their driveway, and code enforcement drives by and says, you look to me like you've got yourself a car repair business. And the person says, no, these are my friends. I'm doing this for free. And unless code enforcement watches it happen, there's nothing they can do about it. Now, that happens today, regardless of what the law says. But the more you open up the opportunities, the greater the potential are for conflict. And that's why That's why the city has kept it so tight so long, I'm sure. Now, we've been reading a lot in the literature, in the planning literature, about the fact that with new technology and with the pandemic, there are many more people that are asking for home-based businesses. So a lot of communities are struggling with this question right now. You're not the only one, and Ms. Haynes Waller isn't the only person who wants to do it legally and is finding that there's real issues about it. What I would not suggest is a pilot program. Once you've got a pilot program, as we all know, now I will say that the county has what I think is some pretty good language in that it says the grant or renewal of a license shall not be deemed to vest or otherwise entitle the licensee to continue a home occupation that is not in compliance. So what they do is they will review these on an annual basis when the renewal comes in. And if they're finding that they have a lot of issues with this one use, they simply don't renew that license. Now, I don't know how the attorney feels about that. Sometimes he sees things differently than the planners, but yes, it's hard to believe, isn't it? But that is one way that you might be able to say, we will open this up a little bit, but that if we find that there's a problem, we simply will not renew. So if you give us any direction at all, we're happy to come back to you. As you know, this is going to take an ordinance change, and it's going to take review at planning and zoning, and I know they'll give you lots of
Go
good
over the
input.
conditional use one, the second one again.
The conditional use permit, that would require the public hearing, and the limited use would be a set of criteria, and then that is only an administrative decision, that the neighbors would not hear about that. One of the things the county does that I know our attorney will not accept is that they have said that if everybody within the neighborhood, within 500 feet says it's okay, that they will approve it. But I believe, you see his head shaking, he considers that to be, well, I'll let him talk for himself, but I know he doesn't care for that.
City attorney?
The danger of that is now the neighborhood becomes you.
Yeah.
You decide, but by putting that power in the neighbor to determine whether their neighbor can have a business or not, takes away your legislative power and puts it in the neighbors, which is not appropriate. So I'd never suggest that neighbors have leverage over other neighbors and have the ability to control whether they have a business. My suggestion is you decide in your code what's appropriate for your residential neighborhoods, and if you're going to allow businesses in your residential, under what terms and conditions, that would not give power to neighbors to make that decision.
Well, let's see what council has to say here. Member Nelson, you're first.
Well, I sort of like the county ordinance, although I don't like the part about the sign, because I think the sign is just not, it's a little overboard.
I wasn't putting up a
Yeah,
sign.
this county lets you have
No.
a sign. I do like the language talking about the zoning official may require a public hearing before the planning and zoning board. And I'm sort of thinking, so if we think we're going to get in, if there's an issue with it, then maybe that might be appropriate. And I like the idea that the license is renewed annually, basically if there's no problems.
I have a home-based business there already. We've had a t-shirt business in my home since 2006. And we've never had any problems with code enforcement. They've come out once because my husband forgot to come and renew his license. And that was not because someone was calling or we had an issue with, people coming and picking up things from our home or whatever. We've had it since 2006.
I have the feeling there's a lot of people out there that have home-based businesses.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
a lot of them don't do it legally.
Yeah.
And that's not what I don't want to do.
So I sort of like the county ordinance. I don't think it leaves it too far open.
The only thing I would say is that I'm assuming that you mean the county ordinance, but with a larger list of uses.
Yes.
I thought so, thanks.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for reading my mind. I've been hanging out with you too much.
Yes, ma'am, I'll see if I can
Member
avoid that.
Nelson. Member Nelson. Anything else, ma'am? No, sir. Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor? You got shocked.
She got shocked, yeah.
And I hit my button, turn it off. Just as you were, that's why I kind of shook my head hard. I was writing down pilot, as you said. I don't want to do pilot. So I'm gonna, and the reason I say that, what better time to try something new with a pilot than during a time of pandemic? Now, don't misunderstand me. I know that we're in phase 3 and maybe things are going to roll differently soon. I don't know. But it does seem like, because you were even speaking about, there seems to be a lot more things going on in the home simply because of the pandemic, and you can't go here, there, and yonder. And so before I even thought of all that, I was thinking about the pilot we ran with the lady on the nursery on Highway 50. So let me digress back to, and I won't be on it long, especially depends on what you say, that you don't like the pilot. Why?
Because I think that the person then invests, like the lady with the plants, and then if you want to change your mind, you pretty much have someone with a vested right, or at least that person believes they have a vested right. And I think that puts you in a very challenging situation to try to unwind it. And I know that I remember that the lady with the plant came up and said, I start ordering my Christmas plants in August or July or whatever date that was. And I know that had you wanted to change your mind, that I could see that that would have been a challenge for you.
Right.
So I think that's what the downside of a pilot program is.
And I agree. I don't disagree. And that could have become awkward. Where I was coming from, perhaps because of the pandemic and because of how things are so different right now, it might be a good time to say, let's just look at this for 6 months or 4 months, whatever it is we decide, if it went that direction. And then if we didn't have any complaints and there's no problem and it's like nobody even knows she's there, it's like, you know what, this worked. It could just be a tryout. I don't disagree with Member Nelson. I think the county is in pretty good shape there, and we could go that direction. Don't need to reinvent the wheel if we don't have to. Which brings me to the other thing, that the county does the 500-foot thing. You know, ask the people within 500 feet. The city attorney, why don't they have a problem?
They didn't ask me, but, no,
Say that again?
no, I'm just saying, I didn't weigh in with them. I'm not sure that they have a problem or don't have a problem. I would suggest that there is an issue with delegating your legislative authority in a sense and allowing a business based on whether neighbors agree or not. I think that is an issue.
Well, in the end, though, kind of like I spoke about Rodney recently, where he meets with all the people in the area and gets their input, and, you know, not everybody's going to say yes. Now, when we say the 500-foot thing, are we saying that they have to kind of vote on it and everybody has to say yes?
They have to get a petition, and they have to get the approval of every single person. And I think what Mr. Broom is trying to say is then it becomes a little bit of a personality issue. They may not be concerned about the use, they may be concerned about the person doing the use.
Good point. And now that I realize that everybody has to sign off, that's a little different than talking to them. And it also means that if they get mad at you, you're in big trouble.
They've already signed off.
I'm not saying they didn't, but if you get one mad next week, they say, I want my name off of there. So I don't know that I'd like to live like that.
Yeah.
So I get that, because obviously you can see, I think
I'm
that's a great
probably
idea.
the youngest person on my street. That's my neighbor behind me and long time second mom over there. Everybody knows me
And old enough to be, you know, second
in
mom.
Titusville. So
And I heard you say that, and that's one reason I thought that. But at the same time, it sounds as though the city attorney has some issues with that, and now that they have to sign, I'm not saying they wouldn't sign, but even my neighbors, and I love them all to death and all that, but the minute my dog goes something where, you know, whatever.
and I
all of a sudden
understand
we
that
change.
completely. I really
I'm just trying
don't
to find
want
something
to
that
put it in
works.
somebody's hands, but at the same token, it was brought up that you know, you want to get the opinion of your neighbors. That's no problem. I've lived in that home for my son is getting ready to be 26. So I've lived there for 27 years. So that was why I asked my
No,
neighbors.
no doubt. As a matter of fact, our first conversation, you mentioned that you had done that. Everybody's aware. And that's why my ears perked up when they said the 500-foot, ask the neighbors. I was not excited about them signing off on it because he's right. That kind of tosses it over to them. What I'm seeing so far then, if I'm trying to find something that works, is the county has an idea, and I'd like to move forward with something that works as soon as possible.
Yes.
And I want to thank you again, and I think this is like my third time doing that you just absolutely want to make sure this is done right.
Yes,
I
that's why I'm
appreciate
here.
that. I do. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Member Jordan.
Thanks. I wish you hadn't even come to ask, to tell you the truth. But I understand, I appreciate your honesty, for sure, and you want to do it right. But then you said something that caught my ear, because I'm always listening for,
That's
your
fine.
husband has been doing something in there,
Yeah,
and he
he
feels
has a
comfortable.
license.
but
It's done. It's legal. It's
Right.
in your records. If you pull it up,
I think
it's there.
my challenge is, when we started talking about a CUP, then you definitely would have, I mean, this is an ordinance, and you have to have basically the whole city come in and say yes or no, they would like something like that. And it's more than your neighborhood that would be asking. So I know you want to get started soon on this thing. You don't want to go that way. So I scratched that one off. But if you go with the county, I got a problem with that one because your neighbors may be fine with it. But if someone else comes along and we said, okay, this is what we're going to do, you ask your neighbors 500 feet. And in this terrible environment we're in now, you happen to have a Trump sign on your yard and your neighbor has a Biden sign on the yard, and you decide you want to do a nail business, they may have loved you before, but now you are not the same person anymore, and then now you can't have your business. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying you've got good neighbors who understand, and you know, the second thing I'm thinking, because I'm an entrepreneur myself, this could get out of hand where everybody knows that you do nails really well. And not only these two ladies, who is your mom and second mom and all of this, but they're telling their friends, and next thing you know, all the people in your church are coming over there, and then now you got all these cars over there. And you're gonna say, well, I'm gonna control that because I'm only gonna have 2 or 3 at a time, correct? And there's no way you're gonna be able to control that because when people hear.
Yes, I can, because I control it. I control everything that I do now. That's what I was explaining to you before. I work from 8 to 5. So I'm not going to have an overwhelming of traffic. And I am busy in the community, so I'm not going to be sitting there all day doing nails. So I won't have an overwhelming of people at my home. That's what I was trying to explain to you guys before. It's not a all-day thing, and that's why when I spoke to Miss Peggy and she explained to me about the county, I'd already read that myself. So that's why I keep stressing to you guys, I'm not gonna put up signs because I know it is my home. I'm not trying to draw attention. Miss Peggy and I've already spoke about this. I'm not trying to do anything illegal, which I've stated several times. But you take someone that's working and trying to do something and put them in the middle of what you're saying. What about this? What about? It's a whole lot of people that have done some things, and people do have a problem with it. I get all of that, but what I'm saying is I'm taking the necessary steps to do it the right way. So if somebody complains, they do. I sat in here for 2.5 hours and listened to somebody complain every time I come in here. I don't want to be that person. I'm trying to do this the right way. I'm telling you what I'm not going to do. I'm telling you, even with my husband has a home-based business now, there's no signs at our house. If you rode by my home, you wouldn't know we did T-shirts in there. So I'm not doing anything that you are thinking that I'm going to do. I've already discussed that with Miss Peggy.
Okay.
Everything that it
All right.
says in the county is what I told her that I would agree to do.
I understand that, ma'am, but you got to understand, whatever we decide to do is going to affect everybody else.
I understand that as
So
well. Miss
what
Peggy
you're gonna
explained
do-
that to me.
I'm sorry, what you're telling me you're not going to do or going to do, that's beside the point. What we have to come up with what are we going to do that is going to be good for the citizens of Titusville.
Correct.
So my question, Ms. Peggy, is because I hear two council members saying they like the county way of doing it, that means that if we do enact that, it's still going to have to come to us as some type of ordinance, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Which means you're still going to have citizens who's going to come before and say yes or no if they're going to like it.
And we'll also go through planning and zoning as well.
And go through planning and zoning. That's going to be interesting in
Okay.
itself. And so if you're going to do that, the 500, if we go to CUP, we're going to do the same thing, correct?
Yes, sir.
Still going to have to go through. I'm trying to come up with a fast track for you, but it's not going to be a fast track unless we do a pilot.
Well, what
And
she
we've
was
already
saying about, not to cut you off, but do an amendment to it is what she explained to me. When I spoke with Miss Peggy, she was saying you can do an amendment. I'm not trying to get you to change the world for me. I'm just asking to be able to work in my home, and I spoke with Miss Peggy. She explained it to me more in depth than what we're discussing now, and I know we don't have all night, but if an amendment can be done so that I can work in my home, that's all I'm here for.
Okay, I'm just going to get back on track because you're actually our first speaker, so I have to open the public hearing and allow somebody else anybody else that wishes to speak, which,
That's fine.
since you know all of those people, I don't think they're going to do that. So stay right where you are.
Okay.
Would anybody like to speak? Oh, we do have some. Ma'am, if you would just step aside and then we'll let you back in again. Don't tell me you're against it now, because
No, my name is Lynn Golden, and I'm 1100 Country Club Boulevard. I'm right behind Mrs. Deidre, and I have a business on South Street. I am a business owner, and we did go around in the neighborhood to make sure that the neighbors didn't have a problem with that. I've come up here, I think this is the third time, and I thought between Ms. Peggy that they would have some kind of plan that she won't have to keep coming up here. I know this is a difficult thing for you all because, as Mr. Jordan say, if you give her the opportunity, then somebody else might come in the neighborhood and say, oh, you denied me. But I'm thinking there is some planning, some things that I think you gave 3 options, that maybe in 30 days or 90 days, you go with one of the plans. And if if the plan does not work or the code enforcement, she violates something, then they'll have to shut her business down on those criteria. But in the meantime, give her opportunity to see if it's going to work. And then if this work, then someone else comes up in the next week or so, then you have a plan to say, okay, in their neighborhood, then we have a plan what we need to do. That's all we're asking, because you got people rent out their homes, bed and breakfast or whatever they call them, and people come with cars, and sometimes we don't even know that's in our neighborhood until we come, and someone said, well, why are all those people in the neighborhood? So we have to look at different issues at this time. Trying to put you on the spot, but hopefully I don't have to come back here every Tuesday night and stay till 9:30 because I miss my TV shows coming here.
Me too.
But hopefully that we can come up with some kind of good answer for her. Okay, Mr. Diesel, you have an answer? Go
No, I was just going to, and I think Member Jordan kind of went back to it. It just seems like perhaps, and I hate to say that word again, the quickest way to give it a try would be a pilot program.
Yeah.
We don't have to get a new ordinance. We don't have to do it, and I'm saying this like I know, but it seems like we'd like to get her started as quick as we can. And an ordinance, obviously, changing an ordinance is a big deal, and that's going to have to go through planning and zoning. And I'm just trying to come up with something that we can make it work.
are you through? I mean, so we can let her back up
Yeah,
here.
okay, all right.
Okay. Are there any other cards? I should have asked that first. Clerk, are there? Okay. So we'll keep it in the public hearing. You're still speaking on the public hearing. Now we can, are you through? Yes. Member Nelson, you're next.
Thank you. Peggy, what's the cost for a CUP? It's pricey, isn't it?
It is, it's about $1,500.
Yeah.
It's
We
an
don't want
expensive process because of the advertising and
everything
the work
else.
and all of those things. So
If we followed the county ordinance, which by the way, it says that actually is a zoning official that requires a public hearing. It's not, neighbor comes in and neighbor's mad and asks for a hearing. It's actually one of the city officials that requires a public hearing. But if we copy the county ordinance, maybe make the changes we think that are appropriate, how long would it take?
if you were to make this, I think you're suggesting a limited use by and large.
Right.
Because that would probably be, it'll be a couple of months because we have to advertise, first have to write the ordinance, and then we have to advertise, and it has to go to planning and zoning. So getting it back here by December would be a whirlwind. Because it's all, we're going to write the agendas tomorrow for the last meeting in October. So it's more likely that it would be in January just because it, the wheels grind slowly because of the deadlines we've got.
Is there a way to make the wheels go a little faster?
Well, I guess if this is the highest priority that council has, absolutely.
Oh.
But I have a feeling that you're also going to be asking me for a couple of other ordinances I can think about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
so-
sorry, Peggy.
Yeah, because you just asked for wetlands and we've still got trees. And so I guess it depends on what your priorities are.
I'm going to jump up into.
Okay.
Go back. Are you through? I'm sorry. Go back again to the second one. What's the downside of that?
The downside to limited
second
use?
When you
There's
suggest.
conditional use or limited use. Conditional use is more expensive. It takes longer. But the upside is the neighbors get input and this council makes the decision. The limited use, the advantage to that is that it's less expensive for the applicant and much faster for the applicant because they don't have to go through any additional processes. They meet the conditions that are set out. They get their permit,
And
their
that's
BTR.
conditional use?
That's a limited use.
Limited use?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
limited
But
use.
there is no impact, but the neighbors don't get any input into it. They would only get input at the actual code change.
What's the downside
Actually, if I were in a person who wanted a BTR, I would want a limited use. Because it's less expensive and it takes less time.
BTR?
Right.
Business tax
To get your BTR.
receipt.
But that takes the neighborhood out of the equation and it takes council out of the equation once they've set the wheels in motion. Once you've listed the criteria, then it's strictly an administrative decision.
How's that sound to you?
Y'all just tell me what to do.
What?
Just tell me what to do.
Right.
I just want
And just to
I'm not gonna
clarify,
tell
that
you what
doesn't,
to do. It's your decision.
Yeah, I want to be able to have, if it's a limited use, so that you say, okay, so Deidre, Mr. Jordan says, Deidre, your limited access, give you 10 hours this week, you're the only person in there. I'm cool with that. So that's why I thought we were going to do an amendment because of the ways that it was going to take a long time and
There is an expense involved. with
Right.
this, though.
So,
But it's nowhere what it would have been. on the
Sir,
other.
just for clarification, it still will have to go before council to approve the limited use.
Yeah.
The code that
Yeah, the
changes.
code, the
That's
change
the
of code to
amendment
allow-
that Ms. Haynes-Waller is discussing. Anything we do is going to require a code change, whether it's a pilot program, a limited use, a conditional use.
Is there another way to solve this problem? Or, I mean,
So that means we're back to January?
Unless, well, if you don't want any wetlands or anything else done in the foreseeable future,
I'm sorry, ma'am.
like I said, you just have to tell me what your priorities are, and we will make it happen.
what are your priorities?
I want to work to make it
I
happen.
can't hear you speak into the mic.
To make it happen. I'm ready to make it happen.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
then I would suggest, because it's all going to take some time, and what I'm hearing you say, you're such an honest person. I really like you. She just wants to know how she can do this legally. And to me, everything that we do, and it should take some time for us to make sure we do this thing right. And it sounds to me, a reasonable person would say limited use is the way to go. That way we have control over what's going on in our city. It's still going to take some time for us to do it, right? It's an ordinance change.
Sure,
Correct.
anything you do is going to have to follow the process.
Excellent.
Whether it's a pilot program, permitted use, conditional use, limited use, that is a change to the code, which will still follow the same path. You'll have to prepare the ordinance, it'll have to go to planning and zoning, we'll have to have 2 readings.
And
That's correct.
the cost for limited use,
The difference is, if you do a conditional use, not only do you do the code change, but the applicant then will apply for a conditional use, which will require public hearings and to pay to go through the conditional use process after you've changed the code. If you change the code to make it a limited use,
right?
what you're doing is you're setting the conditions in the code already. And you're saying, if we're going to allow a home-based business in a certain residential zoning district, these are the conditions that will apply to every single business that is going to be allowed. And those conditions are in the code, so the applicant doesn't go back through the public hearing process. They just follow the code you have put in place. Does that make
What she
sense?
wants to do. I mean,
But it's up to council on what.
No, I agree.
yeah, I know.
So-
But we still have the Vice Mayor, you're next.
Oh, boy. Obviously, I think it's pretty obvious we'd like to get her started as quick as we can. I'm sure you're in the same boat. I was kind of thinking the pilot program was going to be a shortcut, but it doesn't sound like that. So we don't have anything on the table that doesn't take an ordinance.
We have what's called and I'm going to be sorry I ever said this. We have what is, it's in the conditional use permit as a residential professional. However, it has a requirement, which is a conditional use permit, which would still take till January. But it has a requirement that the property be located on an arterial or collector street. Ms. Haynes Waller lives on a local street. So that doesn't help either because she doesn't meet the location requirement, and she has to and she has to pay the $1,500, and it would still be January because conditional use permit takes that long. So the fastest way I know to do this is to get an ordinance as fast as I can going through the process. I just don't know any other way around it.
And I appreciate that. I hear that, and I sense that, and I think, I'd say I'm frustrated, but that's the way it is, I guess. One last question. The 500-foot, she gets everybody to sign, or whoever gets them all to sign, does that take an ordinance too, or can we do?
That would take an ordinance, yes, sir. The code is so tight. You're not allowed to have anyone at your home. It's very clear.
But it's not on the one we're talking about.
No, the one we're talking about would be a change, and that's what the change would have to include, is you're allowed to have someone in your home.
All right, so I don't really have in my hand the one that goes, she can get started next week, and the one that's next January, or not next, but so we're looking at January almost no matter what.
I promise you I will work as fast
And
as I can.
I know you will. That's
I know,
not what I'm
that's
saying.
not the issue, but the process just takes a while.
I'm trying. They're trying. We're trying. She's trying. I thought there might be a shortcut somewhere. I was really thinking, that's why I wrote the pilot program. All we got to do is say, try it out, and if we don't like it, we can stop it. But apparently, that's a whole nother ordinance. And now that I think about it, the lady with the nursery did come back like 3 times, and so
Yeah.
that did take
It
some
was
time.
more of a 4 to 5 month process with her.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I got all kinds of, looks like Member Nelson.
I just have one question, Peggy. I swear it's only one question. What is the easiest and the cheapest for you? Well, the cheapest for her and the easiest for us.
Well, the less expensive for her is the limited use because she
Okay.
doesn't have to pay the $1,500. The time and effort for staff to write an ordinance is the same. The public hearing process is the same.
Okay.
None of that changes. So thank you for thinking of us, but it's
Yeah,
it's the same amount of time and effort for us.
okay. I was hoping I could find you a shortcut.
Mr. Mayor.
Anything else you want to say, and then I'll go put it over to the council to make a decision here.
Quick question. Is there any way that you could give me, say, so many hours until this is clear to
I
work?
have to ask the attorney, and he's
Okay.
over there right now. I can't answer that question. He's got
That's
to.
fine.
No, sir. You'd have to change the ordinance.
Say again?
That's fine.
You'll have to change the ordinance.
That's fine.
Let's just go through the process here.
That's fine.
Ask your question, and whoever wants to answer it can answer it.
I was asking, is there any way that you guys could draw me up a document or something that says I have so many hours that I can work through the month until this is clarified? That was my question to the mayor.
In my opinion, any kind of BTR or authorization would have to be consistent with the code.
So that's a no.
Yeah, I would not recommend issuing anything that is not consistent with your code.
That's fine. I'm just trying to do the right thing. That's it. So I just wait to hear back from someone? Is that what I'm understanding now?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we haven't made a decision. You haven't said yes to
Yes.
when we suggested.
Yes, I want to continue
now
the
you have.
process. This is
So now we
what I
can
want to do.
proceed with what, if council wants to, right?
Correct. If majority of council gives direction to proceed with preparation of an ordinance based on the criteria that you would like to see, then yes, then staff
Okay,
will.
I'm going to
work.
close the public hearing so you can sit down. And I'm going to ask for council discussion. Member Jordan, you seem to be first.
Yes, sir. I think the simplest thing for us to do is ask staff to come back with a ordinance for limited use with specific criteria for the limited use, and we go from there.
The limited or the conditional?
Limited,
I go limited.
limited.
The limited doesn't require the public hearing and is less expensive for the applicant.
I was
That's what we want.
kind of second what he said, or can I make that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
Well,
But just as a reminder, this will eliminate the public input from the neighbors around as well.
Okay, I mean, what, say that again, because I don't see the down, what you,
I believe what city manager is saying is when you do a limited use with criteria or conditions in your code,
Yeah.
then they just apply and they meet their criteria. There's no public hearing on a per business basis, whereas if it was a CUP, each business would come in and there'd be a public hearing process and input from the neighbors each time they got a conditional use permit. So by doing the limited, it's just in the code, there's no additional public hearings
where's the downside on that then?
Well, your neighbors aren't going to get notification that there will be a business next to them.
Okay,
I'm with Member Jordan. I still like the limited use, and I'd like to see staff come back with a change in the ordinance.
Is there any specific limited uses that you're proposing be incorporated?
I think well, for me, I talked about no signs. Maybe something about, limit on parking. And I think there's something about a limit on, that is only the residents that are engaged in occupations.
You actually still have the floor.
Yeah, I know. She just crushed me. You crushed me. That's okay. I finally got under the button first, and I'm like, who is that? No, I'm good. Because I was going to say the same thing, because I was leaning limited use, and you got in there, so I was just going to make it a second. And Deidre, the only limited use seems to be our quickest option. And I know city manager makes some good points because normally with some of the others, the people around you, but I'm not saying it relieves us of responsibility. I get that. But obviously, you've said you've spoken to them. You have some neighbors here now. But I think the limited use can be twisted or moved around enough to make sure we don't have, 8 cars sitting out front. And we can, I don't know what the number would be that's acceptable, but I haven't seen the driveway either. But if we can get a limited use and it can go, and I appreciate your efforts. It's like we just say, hey, go as fast as you can. Every one of them, go as fast as you can. But I think that we're all trying to make this as quick as we can and as painless as we can. And I wish we could say, go ahead, we're done. It doesn't work that way. I can write you a pass.
All right, my goal is not only to help the constituent that came up here, but you said something that I heard, and because of the virus, there are more people working from their homes. So I would think there are more people out there who would like to do something like this, but they know what our ordinance says today. So to me, the limited thing, if we put the right criteria in there, will allow those who need to work from home without having a lot of people to their houses is something that we should look at.
Okay. Member Stokoe, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so there's been a lot of discussion, and it seems I definitely don't want the CUP. I think that's way too expensive for the applicant. I'm leaning towards the limited use as well. I would just like to make sure that we are putting in those uses protections for people that potentially would impact their neighbors. I don't have any hesitation with our applicant that's currently brought this up. I think she'd be fine. I don't foresee any complaints with her, but as we move toward the ordinance, I just want to make sure it's worded in a way that we can allow citizens that do want to work from their home to do so in a safe way that is not impacting their neighbors, while at the same time not changing the culture of a neighborhood into that of now these small businesses. So whatever that may look like, I know I heard, no signs, limits on parking, definitely. I don't know if we want to look at limited hours, but I do want to allow for our citizens to be able to, make an extra income, especially now during these times, as Member Jordan said, but at the same time, protecting the culture of an actual residential neighborhood. And that's all I had.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a motion. And we have a second. And, okay, all those in favor, all those in favor, roll call vote, sorry.
Do we need a motion if we're providing?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
We have a motion and a second, roll call vote, please.
Sir, may I clarify that we have Jordan, who is asking to come back with an ordinance for a limited use with criteria in the code which requires public hearing. And then Diesel.
That's Mary.
Am I reading my own notes here? Which does not require that public hearing. Okay. And then Diesel is seconding this. Okay, thank you for that.
Okay.
All right, so the roll call.
Yep.
Sir, you ready? Okay. Thank you. Member Jordan?
Yes.
Member Nelson?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Thank goodness. Bye.
And just so you know, there's no meeting next week.
Okay. Petitions and requests from the public present. Does anybody wish to speak? Anybody is you? I see none. Mayor's report, you have my report, council reports.
Yes. I don't know if go ahead, if you got one.
You want me to go?
Yeah.
All right. Just want to clarify, because I think, Mr. Mayor, you and I were disagreeing about agreeing when it came down to this proclamation. When Mickey came up and asked for the proclamation, I said that I would be bringing this up at my council report to have it agreed upon that we would do the proclamation. And you said that you would have to look at it first, and that's the whole idea, that you look at it
I
first.
have not decided on what I'm doing.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
And I did get another proclamation today, but it was on a different subject, from a different person, so I was confusing the two. But my point was, I think we are doing what they're asking for already, and I don't want to get bogged down in some other situations. What they have gone and seen and done is perfect for what we want. It's a community thing. If anybody wants to join in on that, they can join in on that. And it doesn't have all the problems of an official governmental thing that government, we're not even in it. We can join it as individuals, but it's not what was originally proposed by Mr. What's his name?
Mickey?
No.
Oh, you're talking, I know you're talking, Bill Gary.
Bill Gary.
Yes.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
would have been, to me,
Right,
a
right, I agree.
disaster.
Right.
So that's where I'm at.
Okay.
And I'm not, I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Anything else?
That's my report.
Okay, I just,
I know, that was my report.
some of the things I already went over, but I'd like to, just reiterate. I did go to the Hope for North Brevard Homeless Coalition meeting. Actually, it was the day after our meeting last time when Matt spoke a little bit. So it was very enlightening. And I would say, and I've said this to city manager and chief, normally when I go to the homeless coalition versus the Titusville or whatever, the count on homeless, it's kind of a wide distance between each other. This was pretty much exact. So the count is very much the same there. But it was nice to go there. And as you know, we went to the Melbourne Police and Community Relations Board, our second meeting down there, and they seem like they got something really good going, and that's kind of a direction I want to go. I would hope that we can go. And then I attended, Laura Lee Thompson called me, or got in touch with me, and I was able to attend a LID environmental seminar at Dixie Crossroads, and she was there. And it was an outstanding presentation. And every one of these groups, I got to admit, the Homeless Coalition, those people are so passionate about the homeless. I mean, they basically get tears in their eyes when they talk about it. I go to the environmental deal, it's the same way. They're passionate about the environment, and I appreciate that very much. And, certainly the community relations, those people are passionate about, wherever you go, you're going to find some passionate people for their area. So I was very blessed to be at those events. And like I said, the one down in Melbourne was with city manager, police chief, and Telly Joyner. So, and a lot of community. Bill Gary was there. Jeff Davis was there. Mr. Davis, I don't know his first name, from the Concerned Citizens. We had a very good showing. So good, it's one of those where we all got in and got to do a picture at the end. So they were glad to have us. But I think we're moving in the right direction.
If I could, I'd like to reiterate, I think our Melbourne hosts were very generous to allow us to ask a lot of questions, and it was during their regularly scheduled meeting for their community relations, and they probably spent as much time answering our questions as they did their normal meeting. So I really appreciate them hosting us at that meeting, as I think you would as well,
Oh,
sir.
absolutely. As a matter of fact, the Titusville aspect of it got the whole first half of the meeting. Our friends from Titusville, and we do it this way, and this is how we do that. If there's a concern out in the community, this is where they come and say, hey, chief, this is a problem. And you could see that happen after when they went to their section, and then we just stepped back and watched. You know, people from different parts of the community and the city actually would stand up and say, well, we're having an issue with this over here, and the police chief or someone would answer their concern and write that down. We're going to go deal with that. So I thought, wow, this is really good. So thank you, City Manager.
You know, I'd make a comment if nobody else wants to go right now. The function of
Sir, could I get you a little closer to the microphone so we can?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, sir.
I'm going on, I want to talk about the homeless thing. The function, we do have affordable housing. We have a big building over here with our, what's the name of the group again? That does, our
Housing Authority.
The Housing Authority, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm tired. The Housing Authority takes care of that. That's our Housing Authority. We have one that we did for the vets up there on Rock Pit Road. We've got things that are taken care of by our staff up in the Harry T. Moore Center. So we do a lot of it. It's really not our bailiwick to do much more than that. It's the faith groups that they generally do that for a community, for the people that are really down and need something over. And as they said, sometimes they don't want anything but maybe a meal. And that's usually the faith groups. And we have some of those. David Cox down on the south, I don't know the name of the church, unfortunately. Yeah. And he was in, I don't mean to turn my back. I'm sorry. He was, but I can't do this. You know, he was in one time long ago, I don't know if, who was here, but to tell us what he did down there. And he had a bunch of guys come in with him and say how great it was. And so we have to be careful about not overextending ourselves into areas that really aren't our bailiwick. And it's nice, it's wonderful thoughts and everything, but we've got to deal with the rest of the city's problems, and that's only one of them. And believe me, some of those people do not want help. And I had an instance this morning that proved that. I won't go into details, but they're doing what they're doing, and if they don't get something where there is a rehabilitative part of it, they're going to keep doing the same things over and over again. If we give them a house, all we do is enable them. So we need the type of groups like the faith industry, the faith community, that will take their hands and try and get them out of their problems. So keep that in mind when we deal with these things. I would say I'm saying that kind of for your future.
Well, I want you to, but I want you to know that pretty much what you said, as the guy sitting in that meeting and the representative, I guess, of the city, because they kept asking me city questions, that was pretty much my take. Just so you know, I make it very clear we're not we're not equipped financially to take care of this situation. It's got to be what you had also said, and my church is involved with that for sure. But it's got to be a faith-based thing, and it's got to be kind of what they do here with the Hope for North Brevard, because that's the group that I was with, and they obviously understand that. So, no, I totally agree and made it very clear. That doesn't mean we're not helping it. We heard it down there. We've got a tremendous amount of things going on. We're not letting them stay out in the cold. We're doing all we can. And pretty much I listened and made it very clear that, we're doing a heck of a job. And again, they were much more experts on homeless than I probably, but I made it very clear. Where I really got a real lesson was when I was working hurricane shelters and the homeless came in. They don't want to go anywhere they don't want to go, and they don't want to go to I don't want to say they want to be homeless, but I am saying there are those that you can put them in the Hyatt Regency and they're going to leave and go back to where they come from. And that can come across in a very negative way, and that's not the way it's meant, but I'm just saying exactly what you're saying.
It's fact.
They want to be where they want to be. But that, again, I don't want to end that conversation without realizing how much we want to help them, and we do.
Yeah, I agree. City Manager, I'm sorry, do you have
Mayor,
something
can
you'd like to add? Oh,
No, sir, I
Can I
think
add
we're
one?
still on your reports.
I had way too much time the last couple of weeks to think, which is always a problem. And I was thinking about the visions, the photographs that Laura Lee showed us of the stormwater on the river. And we have a Titusville Environmental Commission, and we have Woody Rice on it, who loves nothing better than stormwater. I mean, he will talk your ear off
Not
if
to
you,
drink too much of that stuff.
if you have an hour or two and you wanted to talk about stormwater, he'll talk about stormwater. So what I'd like to do is see us provide direction to the Titusville Environmental Commission to work with staff and come up with some ideas on how to end that stormwater runoff. Woody told me that it's not our new developments, it's our old developments. And so, you know, of course, it's going to take funding, and we may or may not have it, but at least we can get an idea of what projects maybe we can do in the future. So that's my request, is that we ask TEC to work with staff and come up with some ideas.
Council?
And I can't think of anybody better than Woody to do that.
When you speak towards the runoff and the Indian River Lagoon, et cetera, and I know the runoff from the stormwater area, that was a big part of the discussion. I learned a lot about the stormwater. But when it comes to the Indian River Lagoon, obviously, and City Manager, you do a great job with this, but my first thought is, instead of looking immediately at our budget, some of the Indian River Lagoon funds that came with the tax, et cetera, because I think we're doing a heck of a job with the baffle boxes and working hard on the stormwater drainage, et cetera. But I would, look to, is there something over there, or is there something we have to request? Is there something we apply for?
Yes, sir. That's the way it works. We come up with a project and we prove the project to have an effect on the lagoon. And the committee down in county votes for the projects, or they don't. And they prioritize the projects based on, my understanding now is they want to get the maximum bang for the buck as quickly as they can. So an example is our $9 million sewage treatment plant renovation. That is a huge thing because it's right on the river. So those sorts of projects made it to the top of their list because we were ready to put them forward. Now, that particular project's going to be 1.5 to 2 years to be completed. You're building an airplane as it's flying. So, but yes, sir, we are always looking for projects. We have, we're using the BMAP as our guide, as we are way ahead of the majority of the cities in the county. I think we want to stay that way.
Maybe that's where you get with Laura Lee and probably more properly, the Environmental Commission, and see if they can't look at that and say, hey, let's see what we can do.
I think they could give us some ideas on projects. And like I said, Laura Lee's tied into that community. She knows what funding is available. Woody knows what projects are potentially out there. And at least we'd have a guide on, these are some of the things we might be able to look at in the future.
Good points.
One of the problems we have with the Indian River Lagoon right now, and I'm not a hydrologist, but part of it I got from Laura Lee a few weeks ago, is the situation out there itself right now is with what I mentioned before about the water being pushed up over here and high. Well, we have a pipe right next to where I live. I mean, that generally takes the water from the retention pond across the street there, the one that has the mechanism in it that cleans it, drop alum in it, it drops to the bottom, and then it scrapes off, and then the water goes in being cleaned and good. Right now, it's going that way. I mean, it's coming this way.
Yeah.
Because I can hear the thing at the top level of the tube, and it has a relief, I guess, or air relief or whatever, and I can hear it hitting the top of this 60-inch pipe. And Laura Lee was telling me that all of this that was going on for the past month or so, it's all coming out of directly out of the wrong way. The southeast is the biggest run we have. If it comes this way, it's not so bad, and that's the way it usually does, out of the northeast, because it's a short run between the bridge and down here. When it comes out of the southeast, it's the biggest run you can have. Well, that gives it the big waves and everything. And it mixed all of the algae that are out there, the relatively good ones and bad ones together. And so what we have is a menage of, and that's why there was such the luminescence that we had this year that everybody's crazy about.
Yeah.
It was because the algae were mixed up. So there's things out there that nobody even takes into consideration at this point with the river, and I surely do not have a solution on it. But I'm guessing that part of what Stan was talking about, the flooding and the water table going up, is right there in front of us. And
Yeah.
anyway, I just thought I'd depress you a little more.
I think we can look at the river, Mayor, and be
Well,
depressed.
if you look at it, you think about it, you can kind of figure it out, and it was kind of corroborated that by Laura Lee saying everything got mixed up. I mean, mixed. Okay, anything else, sir?
Yes, sir. City manager's report. I do have one action item for council. The second meeting, which is scheduled for December 22nd, 2020. It's customary that y'all have canceled it in the past due to the Christmas holiday. There are two meetings scheduled right now, the 5:30 and 6:30 meeting on Tuesday, December 22nd. So we would request council to vote on whether or not to cancel that particular meeting.
Can I make that motion?
Oh, yeah.
So the motion is to cancel that meeting on the 22nd.
Cancel both meetings, yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I guess we still have a quorum.
Yeah,
No further. Roll call vote, please. Oh, yeah, she's up there, too.
Member Nelson?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
And then Member
That
Jordan?
passes unanimously with one person not present.
I've got an additional information item in addition to the resignation of our school board representative to the Titusville LPA, which is the local planning organization. Right before our meeting, I went ahead and sent you an email that our Titusville talking points for the month of October is published. We're a couple days early. Our goal is to get it out on the 15th of October. It's actually out now. It'll go to the print shop tomorrow morning, so we should have it back towards the end of the week for our hard copies. But again, that's a very valuable tool for our citizens.
Absolutely. Let me know when it comes in. I got people mad at me because they haven't gotten it in a while.
Yes, sir. And next is my evaluation itself is annual requirement that you provide an evaluation of the city manager. And I just want to appreciate and thank you for another great year. We have a wonderful team. This has been a tough year. 2020 has been a hard year on all of us, but I think we came through with flying colors so far and staying the course. And we really do appreciate the support of our
I'm going to interrupt you,
council.
sir. We do have a great team, and the two of you are a very major part of that team, and we appreciate what the both of you do and the way you do it. And so thank you very much.
And subject to your questions, it's got one more meeting for you in October and one in November, sir.
Just cancel the one on December
I do have a question.
All right, sir, go ahead.
And you segued me into that perfectly. We discussed it.
Right.
And I'm not trying to get into a trap question here but a lot of people are asking, do we know anything about a Christmas parade? I know we don't put it on, but if you have any insight or what we got to do.
We have received no applications
Okay.
for a Christmas parade to date. We have sent some inquiries to ask Kiwanis, who is the one who normally organizes
Probably
it,
don't know yet.
if in fact they're even considering it. So we've not been able to get a
Okay,
response back.
and yeah, I would just say that there's some miscommunication within the club, because one of the club members told me they're ready to go and applied and blah, 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 so you know how that goes. But I want to get that out there to the public. The other thing is, and it's kind of the holiday thing, is we make our plans. We just, canceled our meeting for December 22nd, which is what we do at the holiday time. Do we yet know anything about the parish lighting in the Christmas tree, perhaps? Maybe you know that. I'm just looking at city manager, but you may know.
I haven't heard it, but I don't.
They have a special thing that they're going to do that you go through in the car and
Okay.
see it, and they give you something.
Yeah,
I got something.
that's good. That's
email.
cool. And that's what everybody's doing at IRC. We always have trunk or treat. Well, we're going to do the drive-through thing too. So it is what it is. I'm just, I would understand no matter what direction they end up going, but I know that, man, that's my number one question now.
Yes, sir, and hopefully we'll have some more information back for your next meeting.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We do have a special meeting.
No, sir, your next meeting is in October, second meeting in October.
I thought I saw something about a special meeting.
All of our meetings are special.
Yes. Oh, very special. Some of them more special than others, actually. Anything else? If not, I'll declare this meeting adjourned.